And I'm going to talk, and you should see, yep, there we go. Okay, now go ahead and kick into Vegas. Arm it for recording. Hit OK. And hit record.
And
Okay, now
all right,
you
now
talk.
you talk. You
I'm
oh,
not going
you
to
talk.
talk.
Haha. For okay. All right, I am talking. So we're gonna start doing this. All right, we're gonna do a little pause here for a second.
Okay,
All right, pausing.
pausing
All
for
right,
a
all right.
second.
We're gonna be quiet and pause. I'm being quiet right now. Just be quiet. Okay. I think that was enough quiet. All right. Let's. I can guess I can turn you off of screen share.
Mm-hmm.
I can go back to looking at my porn without feeling guilt and shame. All right.
Just start it there. Just start it right
Yeah.
there.
All right. Let's see. All right. We're going to just start in just a second. So, all right. Three, two, one. How's it going, folks? It was quite a year, 2018. Comic books were bought and read, and we're going to talk about them. I think that might have been a little bit too. I might have explained that a little bit too heavily, but I am here with Ian of Sydpart2, the Geeky Gentleman Show. Hey, how's it
Hi.
going, man?
Oh, good.
How was your holiday?
Oh, fantastic. That was a pretty good end to the year, I
That's great.
think.
Let's see. Now, for those of you who may or may not know, I've been doing this kind of for the last few years, and I cannot remember for the life of me if I started this on Eric's channel or my channel first. I know I did one on his channel, and then I moved it over to my channel, and then we did it for a few years on Geekvolution, and I think in live version too. Um, and the premise is to do them as a countdown of my top 10 favorite single issues. And I decided to come up with this way to avoid like confusions about like arcs and story arcs and stuff like that. So it's like one single issue that made a big impact on me, and it can be part of an arc, it can
Mm.
represent an arc or a series, but it has to be something that you just came away with and kind of like thought, oh wow, that was a really good book. I'm glad I read comic books. Uh, Yay!
Yay!
So I decided to bring the show back here on the Real Manos, where I think it belongs. And I'm going to be doing the show with Ian this year. We're doing it podcast style. Maybe next year I might do it maybe live or at least video recorded. I don't have a working webcam on this computer, so hopefully next year I will. So
Mm.
maybe I'll do it that way. Although I don't know. I mean, this is kind of fun. Aren't you having fun?
Yeah. Oh, tons.
All right, yeah. So let's see. Before we start, what do you have any like impressions of 2018 as far as comic books are concerned? Like from the big companies.
I mean, it's hard for me not to say that DC's just been killing it. As we go, you will see that I am more of a DC guy, but it's not like I have anything
Mm-hmm.
against Marvel. But at the same time, it's just hard to not make the case that DC has just objectively been better since 2016.
Oh yeah, well that's
Um,
yeah. I can't argue with that.
it's just been such a good couple years for DC since the Rebirth line. And so it's hard, like I kind of feel bad looking at my list and seeing how many of these books are going to be DC, but it's just like there's so there it's not that they're not playing it super safe, they're taking risks, they're doing things differently, they're getting just great talent on different books. It's a really exciting time to be a DC fan. So DC is kind of killing it, and so I'm going to kind of just preface my list with, yeah, if you're a huge Marvel fan, I don't hate Marvel. I just think that they're objectively not as good.
Yeah, I of course like am a big Marvel and DC fan, and I do go back and forth. I really do feel like every few years I go, yeah, you know what, this other company's better. I did.
Mm-hmm. And I think that's what it is. Is like it always
It
swings.
does.
They're never both good at the
Oh
same
boy,
time. It's
well,
crazy.
I don't know. I would argue right now they're both great at this moment. Marvel's been
Mm.
putting out some excellent stuff this year. Um, DC, I gotta say, like coming back from the New 52, um, it really does feel like they threw away all that attempts at kind of meeting these like quotas as far as like types of like people to sell books to. The white boys from 18 to 30 or something like that. It just
Mhm.
felt so marketed. Everything through New 52 felt that way. Um, and that was just Rebirth was literally just shedding all that stuff out and just being DC and just not being apologetic about
Mhm.
it. Uh, and
Yeah.
that's wonderful. I will say Marvel is still, man, they still annoy me with their constant number ones, and my list has a lot of number ones on it. Like it's kind of I'm a little embarrassed, but there were a lot of like great number ones this year. But oh boy, I have literally more number ones than an old guy in the middle of the night. He so hey, hopefully maybe next year I'll have some more variety in like number scale. Good lord. Oh, but yeah, Marvel, man, they of course took some chances. They also stayed true to their characters, and they came away with some really solid books about it. And I feel my list leans a little bit more towards Marvel, but not too heavily. I do have some DC books in the mix. So yeah,
Oh,
I mean,
cool.
I'm not a total. I don't know. I try very hard not to play into that DC versus Marvel thing.
Oh no, and that's the same for me. Like I'm well aware which company I have a preference for, but it's not that one is like better run necessarily or anything like that. It's business, things change over
Oh
time and
yeah,
whatnot. It's just I have a preference for these characters, and I'm perfectly willing to acknowledge that and still really enjoy things about Marvel. Like I just did comic reviews tonight, and I was raving about how good Dan Slott and Mike Allred's Silver Surfer
yeah.
run
I
was.
I gotta tell you, like
Um,
Marvel's worst decade, I think, will always be probably the '90s. Uh, because
oh
as a
yeah.
kid growing up on Marvel, like they completely lost me. I was reading two Marvel books for like maybe 6 years, like Daredevil
Mhm.
and the Hulk, and that was only because Peter David was writing Hulk.
Mm.
And I completely became a DC guy during most of the '90s, and like you probably can guess like DC lost me during New 52, which was quite sad
Mhm.
because I pretty much thought of myself as a DC guy at that point. Now I'm like going, okay, these things come and go. I go back and forth. I'm trying to find balance right now. I've been trying to figure out like what DC titles I'm going to stick to more, and there's a couple on this list, so we'll see.
Mm.
Well, all right. I guess we can just start talking about our lists. And do you want to go
Yep.
first, or do you want me to go?
Yeah,
Yeah,
sure, I'll go
you're my
first.
guest on the show, so please be my guest and go first with your number 10 single issue of the year.
Okay, so my number 10 is Batman White Knight number 6. And I mentioned earlier in my thoughts, I thought DC isn't just playing it safe with what they've been doing since Rebirth. I think they've been taking risks. And I feel like Batman White Knight probably shouldn't be a risk, but it definitely was. The idea of making Batman kind of sort of the bad guy of a story is pretty ballsy. This is a pretty heavily politically charged book and got a lot of attention that I'm not sure DC was super comfortable with. It's a writer artist. That's rare that turns out to be any good. Um, so the whole series it varies in quality, which is why White Knight is so high up on my list because like when it does stuff well, it does it really really well. But I can really tell that Sean Gordon Murphy, the writer artist on this, is newer to writing and he makes a lot of really simple mistakes that he should just spend more time thinking on. And since this series has already been announced for a sequel, I have no doubt in my mind he's going to get better as he goes. But really, there's just some absolutely fantastic stuff done throughout the series. Issue number 6 is just heart pounding, kind of scary, kind of crazy. It has, comics are known for their cliffhangers. It has a fantastic cliffhanger where this whole series, the Joker has transformed back into Jack Napier. He's a stand-up guy. He's trying to convince everyone he's not evil anymore. He's actually changed and he's actually trying to make Gotham a better place. And then just it's been hinting that there's something wrong, that he's not being forthcoming with everyone. And the end of issue 6 has such a great cliffhanger where he just transforms back into the Joker in the middle of a police station with like every cop in the city surrounding him. And the last panel of the last page is just the Joker with every cop in Gotham pointing their guns at him in one room. And it's just his maniacal laughter. And that's like also, if I'm remembering the sequence of events correctly, that's also just after the cops worked with the Joker to take down Batman because he's been such a like absolute wild card and been completely undependable. And it's just before they're about to deal with Neo Joker, who is this really interesting creation for a villain that kind of satisfies the wildly different takes on Harley Quinn by introducing what should be really cheesy but really worked as a second Harley Quinn, and the Joker was too obsessed with Batman to ever notice that the first left. There's just so many good things going on in the series that I really do have to hand, even with its faults, I do have to hand Sean Gordon Murphy a round of applause because he did a really, really great series. It doesn't feel like it's too big for his britches. It feels like every issue is necessary. It's got some twists and turns that are kind of crazy, and at times I think it might only be good because it's such a unique take and it's something that's willing to be more critical of Batman. But at other times, stuff like the two Harleys is just such a great plot point that I really do dig the hell out of it. It's also a bit of a Trojan horse of a series because it got kind of popular with a lot of right wing fans who are tired of the politics in comics and were so sure that Joker using left wing politics was going to be like this snide commentary on the leftists trying to take over comics, and Batman, the true right wing hero, was going to take him down because he knew what was right and no one else did. And then you get like the end, and Batman's like, no, actually, Joker was really right about a lot of the things I'm doing and how wrong they are. That's why, Commissioner Gordon, I'm Bruce Wayne and I'm giving up being Batman. And it's like, oh shit. Um, Fantastic conclusion. Really great series. And issue number 6 has just one of the most intense high points of the series to me.
That sounds fantastic. I didn't pick this up. I am a fan of Murphy's work. He worked on American Vampire here and there. He did a mini series for them, and I was I've always really been knocked out by his art. It's so distinguishable and so unique, and has this really cool. I don't know. It has this. I can't really explain it. It's one of those kind of art styles that has that mix of realism and animation and classic comic book art style all mixed into one. It really, like a couple of pages of his work, really feels like a world.
Yeah, definitely. And it's just impressive that he's got such a great voice for the characters and everything, even though he doesn't read a lot of comics. I was talking with Steve Baxi about this series at one point, and he kind of came up with a sentence that pretty much summarizes the whole series. It's an anti-Dark Knight Returns. It is like everything Dark Knight Returns did, but in the opposite, and it just makes it really fascinating. So, especially with Sean Gordon Murphy doing the writing and the art, it even makes that stand out more so, which is really impressive.
That sounds amazing. I think this is about around the time to start digging into Batman's motivations and how he goes about things, because we seem to have been doing this for Superman for years, like maybe since Dark Knight Returns. And we always act so smart when we do it, like ooh, I'm gonna do this idea of Superman being bad. Like, yeah, we kind of seen it for like a long time. And I think it's now kind of like time to really examine Batman. And this is kind of things. These are kind of things I've heard like fans, including me, like talk about. So it's nice to see that come into a miniseries, even if it's like a Elseworlds type of setting. Actually,
Yeah,
probably that's
totally.
the best method to do it. So you can like you don't have to like rebuild everything at the end of the story or the arc or anything like that. So you can just go nuts with it.
Yeah, and I should also say this series is kind of the predecessor to the DC Black Label series. Murphy's talked about this a lot, wherein without this book's unprecedented success, DC probably wouldn't have done a Black Label. So
Wow.
this is kind of like the proto Black Label
Wow.
series.
Sort of like one of those
Yeah.
early Vertigo books that weren't really Vertigo books yet.
Yep.
Cool. All right. Let's see. If you don't mind, I'm going to go to my first pick of the year. And this was, I think, let me just double check here. Yeah, this is my only non superhero title of the year. And in the past, I've like, kind of mixed it up. Like, had 3 or 4 non superhero titles. And I've been reading a lot of superhero books the last couple of years. I need to tweak my list a little bit. Because there's a lot of really great non-superhero stuff out there. But I just recently like came across this title, and I picked it up kind of sight unseen. Like I had no idea what it's about, and it is Sex, Death, Revolution #1, and this is from Black Mask, and it's written by and created by Magdalene Vizago, excuse me if I mispronounced that. It's illustrated by Becca Farrow, and this was kind of a nice experience because I only heard people talking about it, like people talking like really raving about it and really like calling it like this really great book, and others coming out and going, this is not what comics should be doing. No, it's bad. I won't carry it at my store and shit like that. So I was like, okay, what's this book about? So I picked it up, and to be honest, it just seems like a drama about a witch, and she has this girlfriend that they've had like problems with, and the people at her coven are kind of like fighting with her. And somewhere in the middle of the issue, I started to get this idea like, wait, this is starting not to make sense because like these people are mad at her for things that aren't apparently she's aware of, or she's having completely different memories than these other people. And sure enough, like maybe a page or two after I started thinking about that, she realizes that her name is Esperanza, and Esperanza realizes pretty quickly after that, like someone is using magic to mess with her reality and kind of manipulating things in her world and like causing like complete things that she thought were cool that other people have seen terribly. And it's a complete. We're seeing this all through her eyes in issue 1, so we have no idea what's going on. And it's for someone who's read a lot of like reality bending comics, particularly in superhero comics, you usually are kind of on. You usually have a pretty decent idea of what's going on. Even if the characters aren't. And this was kind of interesting and a little kind of like unnerving to be in the same shoes as a person trying to figure out who is changing the realities of my life. And it's really well done. And the mystery isn't completely... We kind of get an idea of who's doing it by the end. But the mystery kind of... And the series, like, why are they doing this is kind of like left up in the air. But definitely at the end... she and her girlfriend are realizing, okay, something's wrong here. Issue 2 has come out, and what's interesting is we get to see that story from the vantage point of the person doing this to her. And we're not giving all the information of why. So yeah, it's been a fascinating read, and I just picked it up mostly out of curiosity, and that's usually one of my kind of favorite things to do about comics is when you pick a book up just out of like word of mouth, like, okay, what's going on, and you find yourself really interested in it. I've done that. Jeez, God, I've done that so many times with other books in the past, like Powers and Box Office Poison and Preacher. So yeah, definitely. I would definitely recommend picking this up, and I would call this easily probably my 10th favorite of the year. Yeah,
Cool. That sounds really
yeah,
interesting. It's impressive how with how much more respect comics are getting nowadays as a quote unquote legitimate medium, like they weren't always. The kinds of different storytelling we're doing
yeah.
in them now.
And that's
Yeah.
something I really got into that in the '90s. Like, there's this book I can never shut up about Box Office Poison, which is a kind of a drama comedy about a group of artists in New York. And that really opened up my eyes as far as what you could do and what kind of stories you could tell outside of superheroes and action and sci-fi and stuff like that, because that had none of that.
Hmm.
Um, and I've gone back and forth. Like right now, I'm in a huge superhero period, where almost everything I'm reading is
Hmm.
superhero. And like a couple of years ago, I was reading Saga and Lazarus and Pretty Deadly and Bitch Planet. I need to get back to those books because the problem is all those books I was reading are they're one story. Whereas,
Hmm.
like, you take a break from Justice League, for a year or two, you can go back to Justice League and kind of like jump on pretty easily. But with Saga, it's like
Hmm.
shit. I gotta go back by
Catch
all
up.
these issues I missed in the last year. Damn it. So
Yeah. Yeah.
right now they're in a hiatus, so I have a chance to catch up. But yeah, Sex Death Revolution. I have no idea if this is if this is a mini series or an ongoing or like a maxi series. But yeah, I'm kind of curious to see where this goes, and the fact that it deals with witchcraft fairly realistically so far, and the ramifications are unnerving in ways I haven't seen witchcraft used. So yeah, this was a lot of fun.
Cool. Cool. All right, just go ahead and go on to my number
Number
nine,
nine.
which yeah, I'm looking at it. This is the only non-superhero book on my list. Um Mine is Predator Hunters number 2. Or well, hold on, let me rephrase that. Predator Hunters 2 number 2. Um so this is an interesting series. I love this series based on the title alone because the title tells you everything you need to know. It's about people that hunt the predators from the, of course, famous Arnold Schwarzenegger film and Fox franchise. Um, so you got the predators. They come to Earth. They hunt humans because they're jocks, and they're dickheads. And then you and like they always, but they have this weird kind of sort of honor code that they don't really follow properly. Wherein if a predator is defeated by a human, that human like gets a weapon or something and gets to survive. The clan lets them survive because they bested their clansmen, whatever. Klansman's a loaded word. I apologize.
Yes.
Um, anyway, so but Predator Hunters kind of takes the premise of, if someone lived through that, it would be a very traumatic experience, and they probably wouldn't feel too good about it. And with all the comics we've done over the years, this probably happens more often than we think. So there's probably a good sized number of survivors. And so the first volume is about collecting the survivors together so they can go hunt predators as a team. So you got like all the trappings of it. And so the first volume is pretty good. It was a little anticlimactic with the ending. The second volume, oh man, it takes place in
Oh boy.
Afghanistan. They're fighting the Taliban. The Taliban are there. They're being hunted by the predators. The U.S. government's involved with the like Black Ops team, trying to steal the predators' technology. Our ragtag group of predator hunters are there, kind of caught in the crossfire and everything. And it's really, really fitting. And honestly, it could just be a movie. It could just be the next Predator movie without a problem. It's just so works, and the reason issue 2 is on my list here is because it's got some of the best narration that I've ever seen, some of the best writing I've ever seen. To summarize Afghanistan, and not just America's involvement with Afghanistan, but like the history of Afghanistan, because American imperialistic desires for Afghanistan are nothing new. For some reason or other, Afghanistan's been on a lot of people's radar over the
Yeah.
centuries. You can go back just a couple decades, and the Soviet Union was trying to get involved there. You can go back and you can see Genghis Khan and Alexander the Great. All of them try to conquer Afghanistan, and they all fail spectacularly. And the narration that opens issue 2 just has this absolutely biting and perfect line about it essentially boils down to nations with everything come here and leave with nothing because it's all we have to give.
Ooh,
And
that's so
I've
good.
adored that. It is so incredibly good. And it's like the art tied with that narration is an image of a broken down American Humvee. And for those that don't know, we bring all that shit over there, and then when we leave, we just leave it
Hmm.
sit. We don't disassemble it. We don't bring it back. Like there are tanks just sitting in the middle of some fucking desert in Afghanistan right now because we just left them. And it's not like an ethical concern because oh no, the bad guys could get tanks because the fucking desert just eats the things alive and completely
Mm.
destroys them. So it's just like it's just the imagery tied with the narration and the whole premise of what a predator does, where it goes, what it's attracted to, heat and conflict, everything about that just works so well together. It's kind of the epitome of all the macho bullshit that the predators get caught up in, and I really enjoy that about it. So, really great series, probably the best Predator comic I've ever read.
And that's saying a lot because I really do feel like the best stories with Predator have been told in the comics versus the movies.
Fair enough. I think the best story with Predator has been told by Grant Morrison in a video game, but that's neither here nor there. I just like to let people know that Grant Morrison wrote a Predator video game.
That's really random. Da 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 da. Random trivia with Ian. That's a new segment here on the Real
Yep.
Manos.
Yay. Shit, now there's like a lot of pressure. Now I've got to come on with random
Yes,
trivia every
I
time I'm
need
on the
something
channel.
next week.
Shit. Okay.
Get it done.
Oh,
So, all right.
yeah,
So excellent. All right, now I'm gonna move on to mine, and
sure.
I broke a rule. I had a couple rules for myself on my personal list, and I ended up breaking it with this because I just could not put it on the list. And the rule was, um, with I write and publish a comic called Red Knight, and this year it's going to be relaunching with Short Fuse Media, and I was not going to put any Short Fuse Media books on this because I didn't want to. I don't know. I didn't want to seem kind of shady or sketchy or anything like that. Actually, if you've noticed, I've kind of haven't really been reviewing their new books so much on my channel because I haven't really figured out like that line I want to walk on. But I could not put this on the list, and I am talking about Stealth Number 1. And that book is by Sean Mack and creator William Satterwhite, as well as have to excuse me with the penciler's name, Caddis Schreiner. Excuse me if I messed that up. And this was a book like, yeah, it was a new short fuse book. I was of course going to support it, and then I got a chance to read it, and I was really kind of I was so impressed with it, and I was so knocked out by it, and the fact that you know it definitely takes a lot of what's going on as far as the relationship between the police and the black communities of our cities, and I it was one of those things, much like Sex, Death, Revolution, where I'm wondering, like halfway through, like how far are they going to go with this? And the end of the issue really does go. Essentially, it's about this new hero, Stealth, who's making a name for himself in this city. And he is like an African American teacher. His brother was a cop, and he has a lot of great respect for law and order. I mean, obviously, he wants to be a superhero, but he sees like an obvious racist line of corruption in his local police department that he starts standing up against, and of course, that means he gets put on the police department's radar and goes from being like the new superhero in town to like enemy number one, like that. And the art is really gorgeous. And I've seen some previous versions of this, and I was watching this come together, and I had no idea how solid the story was going to be. I was really kind of like taken aback by it, and I gotta say, like Sean Mack, who is the head guy, head CEO of a company, he kind of joined it. He felt so strongly about this book. He like jumped in and started writing it. And this guy, by the way, he never talks about politics. He's mostly business. So you can tell. I mean, this story was co-plotted by him, so this was something that had been writing him. And this was the story he had to tell, and that's one of the things I like so much about developing superhero comics, specifically superhero comics, dealing with issues that affect us. And a lot of these issues, frankly, don't go away. You can tell the same story in the 70s. You can tell this story in the 2000s. You'll be able to, unfortunately, tell this in 20 years, probably. And it just resonates. And boy, and I felt so strongly about it, I sent it to you. And it does some like really cool world building as well. We get to really dig into these characters and the motivations on how, where the line is for supporting the police and standing up with the police and standing against the police when it does wrong. And oh boy, yeah, I really dug this one a lot.
Yes. Question. What do I do if I also have it on the list?
Just name it off, man.
Stealth is my number 3.
Don't blow it now. That should be a surprise.
Well, you're like, oh yeah, name it off, and I'm like, okay.
I didn't know you.
Yeah.
I didn't know you.
I am.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm jumping way ahead. I really agree with just about everything you're saying. Very, very impressed by that book. It just blew me away with how smart it was written, the kind of stance it took. It's a really brave thing, especially for such a small publisher to put out, and I was just really, really impressed by it because it's the kind of thing we need. I can talk up Marvel and DC and what they're willing to do politically and stuff with being outspoken, but I don't think you could get away with this at Marvel or DC. I don't think they'd publish something like this necessarily. Yeah. And so I was just very, very impressed by it. It was very, very intense reading that, especially when you get to the end. And I believe, if I'm remembering the dedications correctly, it's dedicated to
Here, I got it.
Trayvon Martin, Mike Brown, and Philando Castile.
Yes.
Who are all, of course, victims of, brutality and often police brutality.
Rice, Philando Castile?
Philando Castile.
And a quote from Martin Luther King, like, the time is always right to do what is right. It's like, oh, damn it. It's like, it's so good. It's really, really good.
I was absolutely blown away by that book, and I am super into whenever they release issue 2. I'm there for it. You don't have to send it to me. I'll be buying that myself.
Fantastic. Sir. All right. Where are we now? We've done 10 and 9, right?
Yep, and so like I kind of spoiled my number 3, but that's okay. I want to be able to talk about it with you. Go ahead and go to my number 8 then. So my number 8 is actually really recent as of recording, and that is Batman Annual number 3. This is written by Tom Taylor, who's a guy that's kind of been on my radar of stuff I've wanted to read, and I just haven't seen a lot from him that's like really up my alley. And then there's this, and I was like, at first my knee-jerk reaction is, oh, Tom King didn't do anything in the Batman Annual. And then I read it, and it's an Alfred story. It's a big Alfred story about how Bruce takes after Alfred way more than he takes after his mother or father, because he's gained a lot of the stubbornness of Alfred, and we get such a great insight into the lengths Alfred goes to for Bruce that you don't even think about. Like, you always see Batman comes driving into the cave at 4 a.m. and Alfred's standing there in the tuxedo. And you don't really see the other side of that, which is the idea that Alfred sleeps in his clothes. And that just kind of tells you so much about the man. Like, he's not the full, like, he doesn't have the bow tie on and everything, but he's sleeping in the button-up shirt and the slacks. That's really, really telling of the guy. And just the lengths that he goes to for Bruce. You know, Bruce is hurt, he's been stabbed, and Alfred has to get in the Batmobile and run out with a Batman mask on so he can pick Bruce up and save him and take him to Leslie Tompkins and all this stuff. And then it just has such a sweet ending with Leslie telling Bruce everything Alfred did for him, and Bruce deciding to take a day off so that Alfred can take a day off. It's just really, really impressive story. Probably the second best Alfred story I've ever read, and considering the first best is by Neil Gaiman, I don't really know what other kind of compliment I can give to someone. Um, Really, really good story. Just immediately touching, very impressive. I really, really enjoyed it.
That's it does make sense. I sometimes wonder if that's even done enough because essentially, since the age of 8, Alfred has been his father. So I mean, those are strong formative years. So it only makes completely sense that there would be a lot, probably, possibly more Alfred and Bruce than Thomas and Martha, because a lot of people
Mm-hmm.
make a lot of hay about that, like, oh, my father was a doctor, or I've even seen people like in recent years do some stuff with his mother, but I mean he's been there like every day since then. Uh,
Mm-hmm. No, it's absolutely fantastic. One of the best title reveals I've ever seen
yeah,
in a comic, where you don't get the title to the last page, and the last page is Father's Day
yeah,
is the title. As Bruce stays home with Alfred. It's really, really, really good. Very touching story.
that sounds wonderful. And as we move on to my number 8, I also have a Batman book. And it
Mm.
is the tone is very different. It is Batman number 37, and that is by let's see, Tom King, and let's see, what's the artist name on this book? It is something Man, uh, Clay Man,
Clayman.
and I actually got this mostly out of your recommendation. This is the double date
Mm.
issue.
Oh my God, I love
Yes,
that. I'm sitting there trying to place it in my head. That's so much
it is, and
fun.
it's by the way, this is the only Batman book I've bought this entire year. It's the
Wow.
double date goofy episode of Batman, and this, of course, when he and Catwoman are still engaged, and they're getting to know like each other's friends and stuff like that. And of course, they're hanging out with Lois and Clark. They decide to do like the goofiest thing they can, and they go to a carnival which has like a superhero theme night, where they're not even allowed in unless they're wearing a costume. So they come up with this great idea to just wear each other's costumes, which is like great, and of course, like,
It's so Silver
it's
Age.
so Silver Age, but it's done so believably. And of course, like, I love
Hmm.
Clark wearing Batman's costume, but with the glasses.
Hmm.
And it's so interesting because we always think about how um, Bruce Wayne and Clark Kent like look alike, and even like Catwoman and Lois. and you really can tell the difference when they're in each other's costumes. Like, you know, Bruce Wayne in the Superman outfit. Like, oh no, that's Bruce Wayne. Oh my God, they do look so much different when you put them in that
Mm-hmm.
context. It's very funny. I mean, I love it when Batman is funny. Like, you know, they have that exchange while they're changing, and Clark tells him the S stands for hope, and Batman tells him the bat stands for a bat. It's like that's the funniest damn thing ever. I think I've ever heard him say. I enjoy watching Catwoman and Lois get along.
Mm-hmm.
And you know what? We don't really see. I don't know. They've had a few run-ins over the last 8,000 years that DC has been publishing comics, but we don't really get to see them like really hang out. And you know what? They actually kind of click really well together. And
Mm-hmm.
actually, that kind of makes sense. They do have some kind of cynical worldviews. One more than the other, obviously. I love this little like pissing contest that Bruce and Clark get into regarding baseball, and it's like a
Oh my
light-hearted
God.
one, you know. So yeah, this issue was so good, so entertaining, and I'm really happy I picked this up, even though you know I've been taking a sabbatical from Batman.
Yeah, you definitely need that. That
Yes,
was terrible.
and yeah. Anyway, I've been taking a sabbatical from Batman, but I'm glad I like walked back and you know picked this one up because this was a lot of fun. I enjoyed this.
Oh yeah, that's got some of the best stuff. It's like, listen, there's an upper limit to how fast he can throw it because if the ball disintegrates, it doesn't count as a strike. And it's just he's thought it through so much. It's so good. And meanwhile, Superman's are like, I throw him past John all the time. He can't even see some of them. He's got no. Bruce has no chance. It's just so good. Oh man. Yeah, I love
So
that issue. That was a really
so
really good
good.
one.
All right,
All
sir.
right.
What is your number seven pick?
Speaking of pissing contests, it is Super Sons number
Oh yeah.
16. This is a bit of a bittersweet issue, especially now that the fate of John Kent is kind of up in the clouds of whatever Bendis is going to decide to do with him. But 10-year-old John Kent is interacting with 13-year-old Damian Wayne. It's so perfect. It's better than any World's Finest interaction I've ever read. The way Tomasi writes these characters throughout the whole series. Just, issue 16 is kind of bittersweet because it was the final issue of the Super Sons ongoing. Um, Luckily, they got renewed just a couple weeks later for a 12-issue maxi series, but now Bendis is kind of questioning the future of what else we could have with Super Sons unless we age Damien up to or something. So it's a little worrisome, but man, the series is just so perfect. The way Damien's kind of like a bad friend. Like I think we all had that friend growing up who like was fine when we were with him, but would put on a mask or a face around people that he clearly wanted to be friends with more than you. And that's how their relationship starts out. But John is just so endearing, so nice, and he gradually changes Damien, which is kind of just if you're writing good Damien, he learns to change, he learns to grow, and he becomes more human perpetually, and that's just what's done here, and it's absolutely fantastic to see it develop throughout the series to the point where in this like big climactic struggle with evil Kid Amazo or whatever, John's been captured and Damien jumps out of a plane saying he needs his friend to help him, and it's so unbelievably sweet. I just absolutely adore the relationship that Tomasi developed between these two boys, and it just it feels so genuine and just makes me kind of wax nostalgic for when I was a kid. It feels they feel so realistically written like children throughout the whole series, and particularly that issue where Damien has to keep trying to assert his rightness by pointing out the fact that he's older, and John's able to undercut that at every turn by saying, "I'm taller," and that's just it's the ultimate boy thing, and I love it to death for that. It is such an absolutely fantastic series. I cannot tell you how much I enjoyed it. And issue 16 was the end, especially with the art in it. Jorge Jimenez does just amazing art, and he really captures the boys actually look like boys and not tiny little men, which is a thing that's really only a problem in comic books sometimes. So the art nails it, and just the imagery on the cover of like them kind of, Damien kind of saluting as he heads off as the sun sets in the distance, and John kind of, looking back over his shoulder smiling, with like the billboards in the background saying the end. It's a really bittersweet feeling, but it's a really great series, purely on very strong character writing.
Oh my god, that sounds great. That is one of the books I've contemplated, picking up. It's just, man, Damien's just such a hard sell for me.
See, that's the thing, is I like my broken fix me characters. I enjoy my problematic boys that need to be fixed, because I'm a Vegeta fan too.
And he is Vegeta. There have been times where I've read him and I was like, oh god, this guy's such a Vegeta asshole. God. And let's see. So yeah, I mean, I get it. Actually, my favorite Green Lantern is Guy Gardner, for God's sakes, because he's such an asshole. So I don't know. It's one of those things like, why can't I like warm up to this guy? I know he's supposed to be a dick, but I can't get there with him. And I have no real good explanation for you.
Yeah, and I think maybe it would work for you better because you get to see him through the lens of John Kent.
Yeah.
And I think John Kent is just such an optimistic character. It's like, one of the things that worries me so much about Bendis seemingly aging him up, and this might be completely irrelevant, who knows, is that, like, we've done a lot of teenage Superboy, Superman stuff. We've done a lot of Superman when he's a teenager, did a whole television series about it. There's very far and few between where, we do Superman as a kid, as a boy, and man, something about that just, it makes it all so much more intense. More so than like the raging emotions of a teenager, the raging emotions of a child just makes it infinitely more intense and more interesting. And I don't know, I'm very worried for the future of John Kent right now because of just how damn good a case Peter Tomasi made for him in Super Sons.
Well, good luck to him, because I do like the character when I've seen glimpses of him, and I'm worried about the whole family dynamic, because I really love the fact that they just went all in and had Lois and Clark have a kid, and he's a Superboy, and they kind of work. I've read a couple of Superman issues with them, like there's one where they go on a trip together. And yeah, they just click. And as great as Bendis is, as much as I like him, I am worried about him fucking that up, and in a bad way, not in a way that will improve these characters or anything like that, because I'm always worried about writers who want to leave the hero all by themselves, always, and take all these things away from them. It's you don't always have to do that. That seems to be a default for a lot of writers. So we'll see. I don't know. Maybe he's trying to do what good writers do and make us scared that he's going to do it. So we'll see. Yeah. But that's a great pick. Maybe I'll pick that. There's a bunch of DC stuff I should probably pick up and trade.
One thing I would suggest, if you can still find it, check out of all things, the Super Sons and the Blue Falcon. Or no, Dynomutt. Super Sons and Dynomutt. Because that pretty much boils what the entire series is about down to a one-shot. Admittedly, it's got the Hanna-Barbera crossover, which feels a little weird, but Man, the interactions of the boys in that is just off the chain
I'm totally
perfect.
about that. I considered putting Aquaman Jabberjaw on this list, and I kind of regret not putting it on this list. Um, so yeah, I have no problem with that. All right, so
Okay.
let's jump on over to my number 7 pick, and it's a number of let's see, it's another one of my number ones in this list. Thank you, Marvel, for your constant renumbering. It is Miles Morales Spider-Man number 1, from Saladin Ahmed and Javier Garren. And I've read Miles a couple times over the last few years, and I've been off and on in the book and off and on in the character, and I really like him though. And holy crap, did this sell me on picking this up monthly? Uh, because
Mm.
essentially, Miles is like actually in not too dissimilar to the places he is in the film. He's going to a new school, uh, a nice, good, like proper school or something like that. So he's not home all the time. He has a roommate, and he is kind of trying to figure out the balance of being Spider-Man and a student, and at the same time, there's this situation going on where like kids are disappearing who are immigrants, and they there's this one situation where one kid he meets who's a cousin of his girlfriend, and he's having a rough time. He's a child of an immigrant, and he's been going through some stress. And these are all kind of heavy topics, so he just goes out web swinging, and he starts like coming across this heist, this midnight heist or something like that. And it's these people in these robot suits, and they're very inhuman. And then the Rhino shows up, and we have a good old fashioned Spider-Man Rhino fight, which is absolutely wonderful. And you know what? The Rhino is one of your good, dependable villains. You just need them to show up, get in a fight, and then we move on. And it's just Marvel has a ton of these guys, and Rhino is one of my favorites out of that group. And of course, it ends with the reveal that one of these kids in these robot suits is the cousin of his girlfriend. He's like hypnotized, so someone is doing some really shady stuff. Rhino reveals that like he was looking for like a child that's related to him as well. And then of course, boom, we get like a cliffhanger where they're all both taken out. Man, this reminded me a lot of the Amazing Spider-Man run during the 80s, where Peter was kind of in his college days, and we're kind of post Jerry Conway era of Spider-Man. I think it's we're in between David Michelin and like Tom McFarlane. And the 80s was a really kind of solid, underappreciated period for Spider-Man, where it was pretty fast paced, and he was dealing with a whole bunch of crazy stuff in his adulthood. And jeez, this reminded me of that. And the art is gorgeous,
Mm.
absolutely beautiful art on this book. My, jeez, the action. I mean, it's one of those books like Murphy. Like I really do kind of feel like I could step into this world. I mean, it looks believable to me. And Rhino is just absolutely gorgeous when he shows up. Yeah, I
Mm.
just really dug this, and of course, the mystery kind of has me sold. Is like, what's going on? And um, yeah, this one was excellent. And this, of course, timed with the movie. So you
Mm.
Marvel went full miles this past couple months with the movie, and this new comic is excellent. And there's this weird IDW Marvel Adventures book featuring all the Spider people, but they're all the same age. And I don't know why IDW is doing Marvel characters. It
Yeah,
is
it's
weird.
weird.
And they've had this weird relationship with IDW for years. This isn't new. They've been occasionally publishing stuff from Marvel, and I don't know why. I don't know. I mean, I guess IDW makes a good check off it. I guess maybe Marvel feels like they're saving a buck. I don't.
Maybe it has something to do with Disney.
I've
Yeah, I
had
don't know.
this. I've had the suspicion that IDW is owned by Disney. I haven't bothered to check. So, Disney can go. Well, you IDW could do this. We can farm this out to you guys. Uh,
I don't know. It's the
It is.
weirdest
They've
thing.
they've published. The first time I noticed it was when they did this beautiful super collection of Daredevil Born Again in black and white, and I kept asking, why the fuck is IDW publishing this? And no one, everyone I like bring that up to, they go, "Oh no, they just started like, what? That doesn't strike you as weird?"
Fucking Dark Horse just starts publishing Batman
Yes, it's
comics.
exactly like Dark Horse publishing some Batman. Like, oh yeah, this new super edition of Dark Knight Returns published by Dark Horse. Yeah, that's the exact same situation, and I don't know. I haven't bothered to really.
I guess it couldn't be as bad as like Image publishing some
Oh man,
Batman
that'll never
comics.
happen. But anyway, long and short, I really did love this. This is a great year for Spider-Man, and this is, I think, one of the high points.
All right, I'm gonna have to get it. That's still on the
It
stands,
is.
isn't
I don't
it?
think issue two's come out yet. I didn't get a chance to get to the comic store today, so I don't know if issue two came out this week or is it next week. It's still pretty new.
All right, I might have to give it a shot because you're really selling me on it, and I'm a little worried about the writer because he did Exiles, and I thought that was really bad. But I don't know. Not everyone knows how to write cosmic Marvel, so that may have just been his shortcoming or
Cosmic,
something.
multi-dimension stuff, that's hard to do.
Yeah.
So I don't really blame him for that.
All right. I'll go ahead and go on to my number six then, and it is funny enough, similar to the last one I did. It's the end of a series. It is Batwoman number 18. This was the end of Margaret Bennett's Batwoman series, and oh boy, it's the conclusion of the series, and the series has a pretty definitive take on Kate Kane that is really really interesting. Um, the rebirth number one, not the real number one, whatever, of the series, kind of posited the idea that Kate Kane is an addict, and she trades one thing for another to fill that void in herself. It's drugs, or it's sex, or it's adrenaline. She just keeps trading thing after thing after thing. And she is kind of told this by a lover that she's leaving, that one day she's going to find the thing that's going to sober her up. And that, in issue one, that little speech is connected to the first time Kate Kane sees Batman. Um, and so it's Margaret Bennett kind of takes the reign that from the instant she saw Batman, Kate Kane knew what she wanted to do with her life and finally got her shit together. Batman was the mantle of the bat was the thing that sobered her up, got her life together, and started to put it in a direction. And then the Batwoman series is all about Kate Kane's past and all the problems that she's left behind, all the skeletons in her closet, and how one of her former lovers, when she didn't care enough to look into the people she was spending time with, is like a freaking arms dealer, drug kingpin kind of shit. It's just it's hell. And how so much is done just to hurt her and spite her and the enemies she created along the way. And issue number 18 is kind of just this huge reflection on the whole run and the whole diagnosis of Kate Kane as a character, and how she was always chasing the next high um, her entire life, and not really and kind of taking her life for granted. And it ends with just this absolutely perfect note as we kind of like set Kate Kane up for her future, of teasing the idea that maybe her and Renee Montoya can make it work again and all this stuff. And it has this beautiful narration um, that says, "And in the time of your life, do not forget to live." And it's so wonderfully perfect, especially with how verbose uh, Margaret Bennett can get. She really is a writer that likes to soapbox and likes the big speech and everything, and I'm a sucker for that shit. um, with how talky Margaret Bennett to get to end the series with just that. It's such a simple little quotable thing. It could be on the fortune cookie. Um, it's such a great little send off to just what in my mind is the Kate Kane run. Like I've not read the Greg Rucka stuff and everything, and it really makes me want to. But man, what a send off it is! What a way it just sets Batwoman up for the future. Just an absolutely fantastic series. And issue 18 does a great job of just giving a salute and a send off and a here's the road that she's on now to Kate Kane. And I thought that was, so rare to get the end of the series, especially in a Batman book, and give it a happy ending, for
Yeah.
Christ's sake.
Now, I
Oh.
assume uh, if we get the CW Batwoman show going, that DC will obviously, bring the comic back. Like, she's one of those characters that isn't going to go away, even if the CW show wasn't a thing. Do you think if that's a case, if we see the comic come back in the next year or so, do you think Margaret Bennett will be invited back, or do you think she's kind of done with the character for the time being?
It's hard to say because it seemed like she kind of had this story planned from start to end. Murder Bennett's Bombshells is another series I really like, and as much as she clearly had a plan for that, she had to wrap it up really freaking
Yeah.
quick because the series got canceled. Batwoman seems pretty much, yep, it is. It seems like it ended. It didn't get
Yeah.
canceled, if that
It
makes
does.
sense. So it's possible she could come back. I would certainly welcome her back, but certainly doesn't have
Mm-hmm.
to. She's written two absolutely definitive versions of Kate Kane between this and Bombshells, so she certainly could. She's a really good Batwoman writer, but I don't know if she ever needs
Mm-hmm.
to.
It's funny. That was another book you kind of sold me on. I started picking up literally at the end. It's like,
Mm.
fuck, man. I was gonna like get all into this book. Um,
Yeah, I hate when
it
that
is, and that's one
happens.
of the things we were talking about. Like it's a little bit challenging to get a pull list these days because like the books get canceled and renumbered and rebooted constantly, more so than I've ever
Hmm.
seen. Even when they're doing well, it used to be
Hmm.
a case like when the book isn't doing well, it gets canceled. Now it's like, we need to, sell a few extra more books this spring because the movie's coming out, so we're gonna renumber it. God, it's tough. It's really annoying, but I do
Hmm.
recommend if you do dig into her past, like the Greg Rucka stuff is really nice. I enjoyed a lot when that artist came back during New 52 without Greg Rucka. You do miss Rucka on the book because it
Hmm.
does kind of like meander a little bit. Like, I mean, I dropped the book because like I don't know where this book is going.
Hmm.
You can definitely tell the difference in writing. So, but I definitely did recommend picking up the original run with Rucka. Uh,
Cool.
all right, so where are we? Six? I think six now. Let's see.
Yeah, I just did my number six, so it'll be yours.
Five, six. Okay. Now, I picked this up because I was interested in the ongoing series, and I knew this was a miniseries leading up to it, which has been kind of a tradition with this book. And I am talking about number one, Justice League No Justice. And that is by Scott Snyder. And let's see, who's the artist on this one? Let's see. Francis Francis
It's Scott Snyder, so
Francis
is it
Manapul.
oh,
And
okay.
Francis
Fair enough.
Manapul's art is gorgeous. And actually, the art on the Snyder Justice League so far has been absolutely beautiful. I wonder if they've been using the same colors because the color is just absolutely gorgeous. Anyway, this is the usual kind of all hell's breaking loose crisis problem that we need the Justice League, and oh no, they team up with the villains because everything's so bad. And boy, did this remind me of one of my all-time favorite Justice League stories, which at the time wasn't technically one, but Cosmic Odyssey, where Brainiac gets puts teams together of heroes and villains because he doesn't care. Because we have this big crisis situation going on. He goes, okay, these are the people. Tells all this backstory. Okay, you got all these costumes to set. We're gonna do these different teams based on these personas. Everybody's set. Meanwhile, Amanda Waller has her own team set because she's observing Brainiac and what he's doing, and is very suspicious of the danger that he is causing to the entire universe in reality. And just before everything gets going, Brainiac's going, okay, listen to me, we're all doing this. Amanda Waller has her psychics push the button on Brainiac and blow his head up. That's the end of issue 1. It's like, okay, we're gonna go do it, and then boom, his head blows up, and our heroes are left, facing these gigantic gods with suddenly no direction. I really did enjoy this. This sold me a lot. I'm kind of a sucker when you take teams and mix them up for an adventure, and it's always fun to do it this way. The art, like I said, is absolutely beautiful, and I occasionally do have my complaints about some of the things Snyder does as a writer and the pacing of the way he does stories. But I've been digging his Justice League books so far. Maybe because it's very obvious he's kind of like, in a way, doing the Justice League Unlimited TV show as a comic book. And that's been kind of his approach with it. Which, sorry, I'm not made of stone. If you do that, I'm going to read it. So, yeah, this was just absolutely wonderful. This was this 4-issue miniseries was a fun summer movie for me. And Starro was actually one of my favorite supporting characters in it. Because he's kind of like a grumpy asshole in it. It's just great. So, yeah, this one was a lot of fun.
That's cool. I like what even though I don't read Snyder, I like what he's kind of set up for Justice League, because out of that we spin off like 3 or 4 different Justice League books. And that's just neat.
And I've been wanting to ask you, you don't really, I haven't really seen you talk about Justice League. You've occasionally talked about Justice League Dark, but have you just hadn't had a chance to pick up the book, or you just actively avoided it?
I actively avoid Snyder at this point because of how much I disliked his New 52 Batman run. It left a bad taste in my mouth, and I just don't really have much desire to pick up something I know I'm just going to be more critical on, because now I got really aware of what it was about Snyder that I didn't like, and I'm not interested in shitting on the guy's writing style or whatever left and right. I don't like what he writes. That's fine. I'm wish him all the success in the world anyway.
I dropped Batman. His Batman was the last of the New 52 books I dropped. I held on, but partly because his first arc was, 800 issues long. It and had it spun off
a crossover and
Jesus, man, come on, tell a one shot. So, that was the last one. And once he got done with Quarter Owls, it was like, okay, all right, I'm tagging out of DC. And I just wish he'd rein it in. I think that's my biggest problem with him, because he's so talented, he's so great, and he tends to have a good voice for characters, left and right. But man, just rein it in a little bit. And he's at risk doing that a little bit with Justice League, because we're still doing this source wall broken thing. We're going, we thankfully have been doing other stories, and I think that's what I've liked about his Justice League run, because we're into issue 14 or something like that, and we're doing a series on Hawk World Prime, and we have a couple of storylines going on. So thank God we take breaks from it, because I'll be honest, if we were at 14 issues and we're still doing the source wall only, I'd kind of would have been kind of done. So hopefully he's kind of learned from that, because you got to mix it up. I mean, you can have an ongoing story arc through your series or through your run. And I
Mm-hmm.
wholeheartedly, like, as a writer, like, endorse that. I think that's a great idea. But man, you gotta look. You need a villain of the week. You need Rhino to
Mm-hmm.
show up.
In the Justice
Yeah,
League book, it'll sell millions of
everybody will go,
copies.
what? Why is he here? But that's the genius of characters like Hydro Man and Rhino. Look, you just need a dumb thug with powers to show up for one story or a couple stories, to mix things up. You can't do Watchmen every arc. You just can't.
Mm-hmm.
It's just not
Mm-hmm.
sustainable. So far that seems what he's doing. So I'm enjoying his run, but yeah, I really dug No Justice quite a bit, a little more than I expected to. I was kind of like, okay, let me see what he's doing with the series, and walked away really, really finding it a lot of fun.
Cool. Cool. Alrighty, so go ahead and go on to my number five. Hey, Manos, you like
I
Justice League?
do.
I like Justice League Dark.
I like
So my
Justice
number
League milk
five.
chocolate.
Oh, okay. Um, my number five is Justice League Dark. Particularly, I'm just gonna say the Witching Hour number one, since that's what starts this story arc. But really, it could be any issue in that like 4 week crossover that they did, where it's like Justice League Dark for 2 issues, 2 issues of Wonder Woman, and two standalone specials, or not standalone, two specials that are their own book. I will say, of all those things, the thing that annoyed me the most is it's like the way it reads is Justice League Dark, Wonder Woman, The Witching Hour number one, Wonder Woman, The Witching Hour part two, Justice League Dark, The Witching Hour part three, and yeah, but like so like there's two special books, and the first one is called Justice League Dark, Wonder Woman, The Witching Hour part one, number one, and then the next book is called Wonder Woman, Justice League Dark, The Witching Hour part four, number one. So that was probably my biggest complaint about the whole story arc. But yeah, this just sets up a really, really cool story. I was really excited just about the prospect of Justice League Dark. I mean, fuck, it's Wonder Woman leading her own Justice League team. Why hasn't that happened yet? It's Wonder Woman leading a Justice League team that's meant to deal with magic. That makes so much goddamn sense. It's not even
Mm-hmm.
fair. Why hasn't that happened yet? Um, there's just so many like there's so much concept going for this book. It almost couldn't be bad on concept alone. Then you rope in the scale that Tinian the Fourth has for this book, and I've kind of, when you talk Justice League and Avengers and team books, I've kind of been way overly influenced and spoiled by Morrison's Justice League run from the 90s, because he kind of starts with the premise, okay, why can't Superman just deal with this? Why can't Green Lantern just deal with this? Why can't Wonder Woman just deal with this on their own? Why the fuck do we need all of these people together? And Tinian takes that kind of premise for the threats the League has to deal with and sets it up for a magical threat and puts it on the Justice League Dark. And so you got Wonder Woman, Zatanna, Constantine, Swamp Thing, Man-Bat, which is weird but works really well in a the Wolfman kind of way, and Detective Chimp of all people. And it's such a great goddamn premise. And so the Witching Hour is about the Greek god of witchcraft, Hecatath, or however the fuck you say
Hecata?
it. Um,
Hecata, maybe?
yeah, Hecata. Yeah, I don't fucking know. She like kind of comes in because of the threat of the first story arc, which is about the other kind, which is Dr. Fate decided, you know what? I'm a Lord of Order, and magic is fucking chaotic as hell on Earth. I'm done. It's over. We're done with magic. I'm taking your toys away, children. And he's just like says, all right, so magic's always come at a cost. here's the cost, and kind of betrays Earth's magic users to the other kind, which is like the dark side of magic, that like everything, all the costs that have built up over the centuries for using magic all coming at once. And so that creates a whole fucking shitstorm that the Justice League Dark barely manages to scrape by out of. And that awakens the witch goddess, who's kind of like the creator of magic on Earth and shit. And it's just, it's intense. She's possessing big name magic users in the DC universe, including Wonder Woman, and like turning them into servants. And so you just got, this epic scale of Nanda Parbat being burned to the ground, the Parliament of Trees being destroyed, and it's just such a scale to it all in this story arc. It all starts off with the Witching Hour #1, and it's just, once the Justice League Dark starts to have to fight Wonder Woman, it's like, well, shit. It's that, we do it with Superman a million times. We've rarely seen it happen with Wonder Woman, and it's scary, it's intense, it's real. There's a lot going on. It's a very complicated, convoluted kind of story, but it's super, you're just super invested in it. It's very, very intense, high drama, high stakes. You feel all of it. It feels necessary to have a Justice League, which is just really, really great stuff. So very, very enjoyable series. And I'd say that story arc, The Witching Hour, is a really good introduction to it, because while it's all set up in the previous arc, it stands on its own still really well, I think.
That sounds really good. I decided to break from that. I knew that was coming up, and I didn't feel like picking up an extra title. So I did take, let's see, I took a break from, I think, the 2 Wonder Woman issues. And I've done that with, let's see, the Aquaman, Throne of Atlantis. I'm trying to avoid events or crossovers right now, and I'm not sure how much longer I could go.
Yeah,
they're sometimes hard
well,
to
it's
avoid.
one of those things where it is an event, but it's not like a multi-book crossover event. It's affecting the characters who are involved on the team, and that's like the best part about it. It's not like you have to read the Superman The Witching Hour tie-in or anything like that.
Oh man, that's my biggest beef with Marvel is, they're huge events that really don't change anything. But yeah, I kind of like the more smaller satellite events. This is going on in the Spider-Man books. This is going on in the Justice League books. I think that's kind of the best way to do it.
Yeah, I agree.
All right, so we're at 5, and I'm going to go with another #1. I only have like 2 more to go. And let's see. This is Riri Williams' Ironheart. And #1. It's by Eve Ewing. And the artist I have never seen before, but holy crap. Kevin Liberanda and Luciano Vetotos. I'm really bad at names. I'm like Linda Belcher as far as pronouncing names. But geez, this one's really good. Now, I've only had some limited contact with Ironheart because she's appearing in Champions now. She's popped up in a couple of books I've read, but I haven't gotten a real good sense of who she is. I know she's one of those. She's a young scientist character, and she's one of those characters that kind of almost like Reed Richards, just kind of like isn't good with people and just focuses on the work in an obsessive way, which is interesting to see what done with a teenage hero like this, because she's like 15, 16 or something like that, and she's going to college, and she kind of has this nice relationship right now where this of course is through Stark. But the dean, of course, like starts out. He kind of gives tours of her like laboratory, which is kind of no for her. She's kind of a bitch to some of them. But she does answer some of the questions, and it's interesting to see how people react to like super scientists and super craziness going on. And there's a bunch of political figures. Having a conference at the school, and of course, this is Marvel Comics, so of course the supervillain shows up.
Oh
And
yeah, it's the
yeah,
Rhino. No one expects the
no,
Rhino.
actually, it's another Spider-Man villain. You know, I gotta tell you, Spider-Man's villains are perfect because, hey, I need somebody to fuck this up. Oh, let's see. Let me get one of Spider-Man's villains. And this one's actually a newer guy. This one's Clash from the recent Dan Slott run when Peter Parker was a CEO of Parker Industries. And yeah,
Oh
no,
god.
he's kind of a how can I compare this guy? He what's that? He's a little bit like Vertigo or the Shocker, that type of villain. He's threatening this whole group of people. And of course, we get to see Riri in her Ironheart outfit, kind of combat and do their thing. Then we kind of like defeat him. We got it and of course we got the usual thing like, oh, he's part of this bigger storyline. And then we get kind of like a few pages. There's like 5-6 pages of Riri talking to this boy on the phone while she's building this AI project, and she's kind of starting. This issue seems to be kind of figuring out how, or having her figure out like how to kind of interact with people like a human being, and it does kind of deal with, of course, the usual like any hero, like issues with parents, and of course ends with her very own AI kind of coming to life in holographic form. This was really, I hadn't had this much exposure to her, and I liked her quite a bit. The art is absolutely gorgeous, and yeah, like the Miles book does remind me a little bit of 80s Marvel. And yeah, so
Nice.
look, I'm a sucker for 80s Marvel. 80s, 70s Marvel, that's kind of my home base. And yeah, this was a little bit thick, but it was one of those books where it's like, I don't mind hanging out with this character for a minute. So yeah, I really enjoyed that, much more than I expected to. I kind of picked it up mostly out of curiosity, like a sex death revolution. Like, let me take a look at this. Some people love and hate Ironheart, and I haven't had a real good chance to really kind of get to know who the character is. And this one, it's like, I really like this character. I'm going to stick around for at least a story arc and see where we go.
Cool. Cool. Alrighty. Well, I guess I'll go ahead and go on to my number
Yes.
4, which is Bombshells United number
Yes.
9. Um, Margaret Bennett's Bombshells started in, I want to say, late 2015, and was immediately better than it had any right to
Mm-hmm.
be. It's a series based off of a neat little fun idea of what if we did the women of DC Comics, but as like, you know, bombshell girls and pinup style and all that stuff. And it's like, oh, that's cute, that's fun, that'll be fun to draw and come up with ideas for. And then Margaret Bennett comes in and she makes it one of the most politically charged comics I've ever read. Um, it's got these great grandstanding soapbox moments, but it also doesn't forget to have fun. There's an issue where they steal Hitler's dog. Um,
They stole Hitler's dog.
yeah, because I mean, Hitler's dog didn't do anything wrong. It didn't know. It's
Yeah.
adorable. Uh, so there's a lot going on in the series that's really good, and then it got relaunched or soft relaunched like kind of in the middle of Rebirth somewhere along the line, to try to bring some new readers in, and ultimately it didn't get to build the conclusion that Margaret Bennett wanted it to have. She ended up being able to tell her conclusion story, but you can really tell she had to drop a lot of ideas and kind of rush to the conclusion and the issues they
Yeah.
gave her. But man, when it was going, it was so good. So I picked issue number 9 because it kind of gets to a lot of the heart of the series. Issue 9 is weird to talk about because depending on what you get, issue 9 is either going to be a Wonder Woman story or a Batwoman story because the series was released digital first and then collected in print. So issue 9 is a couple different things. But my issue 9 is a Batwoman story wherein she's in the catacombs of Madrid in the middle of the war, and she's there with Renee Montoya, and they've stumbled upon a Lazarus pit, and Talia al Ghul's there, and she's got like this great Middle Eastern look with like the veil and everything. It's really cool for a design for Talia al Ghul in that era. And they've stumbled upon a Lazarus pit, and someone has resurrected Jason Todd, but Jason Todd isn't fucking Red Hood or anything. Jason Todd was a little kid that Kate Kane and Renee Montoya kind of took under their wing when they were fighting Franco in the Spanish Civil War, and he got killed, and it's broken them up, and it completely destroyed their relationship, and yet someone's resurrected the poor kid, and it's all about the heart of just being there with them, dealing with this surrogate child they had together that they were raising, and there he is again back, and like it stirs up all these old emotions, which is, that's a lot of drama because Kate Kane left Maggie Sawyer behind when she went overseas to start fighting Nazis because it's the fucking World War II. It's just got it's the issue itself isn't like the best of the series or anything, but it was an issue I could talk about, and it's just a fantastic series. I'm not sure if it happens in that issue or if it kind of happens somewhere later on in the story arc, but they kind of reveal that the Lazarus Pit, if the person that leaves it stays alive, there's a cost to others, and so Jason has to do what's right. He has to make an adult decision as a child that none of the adults in the room want to make, and he has to walk back into the pit and give up his life all over again. It's just the look on Kate Kane's face as she watches this kid do it is just so damn tragic. And like I said earlier, it's the one of the most definitive versions of Kate Kane I've ever read, and they're both written by Margaret Bennett. She clearly knows who this character is, and it's just a lot of really great stuff happens throughout that series, and I'm just mad at the world for not reading Bombshells like I kept screaming at everyone to do.
That.
Yeah. So yeah, Bombshells, absolutely phenomenal series, and we lost it before its time, but I'm glad she got to tell her ending regardless.
Bombshell strikes me as one of those comics that is way better than it needed to be. Like, it's obvious, like, it's a tie-in to these cute little, like, toys and statues and shit like that, and is just meant to, like, just sell some books and, establish, why those things exist. It's not meant to be this good. It's not meant to, dig into it, and I think that's really commendable that she and, the editors who, like, said, okay, do it, like, went for it, and, like, well, hell, like, it's like telling a really important lengthy story with, actually now people are kind of doing that with with toy comics, but I mean, it's like taking like the most random crap and like I don't know, it's like taking the A-Team comic and going, okay, let's do something with this.
Yeah, let's actually talk about imperialism. Yeah. Let's actually talk about privatization of the military. Yeah. No, it's so good. It's one of the gayest books you'll ever find. Everyone in that book is either bi or lesbian. It's kind of hilarious.
Yeah, there's no way you could avoid that.
With Margaret Bennett being, I'm pretty sure she identifies as bi, but don't quote me on that part. Herself, it reads as like very informed on the community and stuff, and to set it in the 40s, they don't really back away from the way that stuff is treated. They're, by the very nature of it, they have to say, okay, well, these people are just so damn good that society might not like it, but they kind of just have to deal with it. Which not probably wouldn't have happened, but I don't care. It's just so good. So like there's a lot of that going on throughout that series, and that's really cool. A lot of really intense romance throughout the series too. That's just absolutely fantastic. I will say it has my absolute favorite Steve Trevor Wonder Woman relationship, where she's helping him recover from PTSD. There's so much going on in that series that's just fantastic. It's another Justice League book, and it's absolutely fantastic. For the longest time, my background on my computer has been the first image of all the first time a bunch of the bombshells got together to save London, and there's like Mira standing on a tidal wave, and Supergirl and Stargirl are flying around in the back, and Kate Kane has summoned a bunch of bats to London to distract the Nazis and everything. And it's a big group shot, and Kate Kane says, "How about a Justice League of our own?" And I'm like, she's holding the baseball bat and everything. It's too good.
That's great.
Oh,
Uh, that's a lot of fun.
yeah,
All right,
definitely.
here we go. Where are we here? Number 4. And my number 4, um, let's see, was a little hard because this series I really enjoyed this entire year, so I kind of had to figure out which one to pick for this list. And went back and forth, and I decided to go with Miss Marvel number 33. And that's by G. Willow Wilson and Nico Leon. And yeah, I didn't know this was going to be G. Willow Wilson's last year in the book. Although now that I look back at the last 10 issues or so, I can definitely see that she was kind of winding down and finishing her run with the book, because she's answering a few things about the series. Like I almost chose issue 31, which is a really seemingly sweet, cute throwaway issue where she's having a slumber party with her friends and she has to duck out every few minutes to do Miss Marvel stuff and then come back and go, hey, I got the popcorn, and that usual kind of stupid shit. And it ends with her going, you know what, screw this. Look, I'm Miss Marvel. And and her friends go, yeah, we kind of knew. We were kind of waiting for you to tell us. I was really like, oh, maybe this issue or that issue. But I settled with this one because this is actually issue 2 in this 4-part story arc called The Ratio. And it's her and her... well, they're dating at the end of this issue, which is partly why this arc is so important. It's her and her friend Bruno, who is a scientist, these young teen scientist, and they've been trying to figure out almost since the beginning of the series, like how exactly her powers work. And while they're conducting an experiment, they start going haywire. Like she starts to shrink and can't unshrink, and then she starts growing again, and then she shrinks again, and she just can't like keep it together. While at the same time, the Shocker, and I guess this is a theme in my list, another Spider-Man villain to show up and screw up things. The Shocker, who actually is
Manos,
that was
like
an unintended theme.
you mentioned that you had some rules for your list. Was one of the rules that a Spider-Man villain either has to show up or you have to mention the need for a Spider-Man villain to show up?
No, it was not planned. It's an unintentional theme of this year's list. I gotta say, and the Shocker's always been one of my favorite Spider-Man villains. He works so hard, and he's got a classic costume, and they've never done any stupid updates with it. Anyway, he shows up in Jersey because like he's tired of getting his ass kicked in New York by everybody. So he's kind of been going through this whole thing where it's like, I've got to make a name. I've been doing this for a while. I'm pretty good at being a supervillain. I should really kind of like, try harder and like make a name for myself. So he picks this moment to do that. So he starts, causing havoc in Jersey, and of course, Miss Marvel jumps right in. Now this issue picks up at the cliffhanger from the previous issue where she had just shrunk and she just couldn't regrow. So Bruno jumps in to pick her up, and they're about to get blasted by him. And that, of course, leads into this action sequence where, she starts fighting him, and her powers are like going back and forth, being consistent and not. And so it kind of runs this kind of, I guess, she has this tension going on because she's trying to fight Shocker all the while Bruno goes back to his lab and go, okay, what's screwing up her powers? And how can I fix it? While she's trying to fight him with these powers that just aren't staying consistent. And Shocker is quite entertaining in this. Like, she has this one moment where she's about to grab him, and her body goes all flat and bendy and useless in a really comically goofy way, like almost like Plastic Man goofy. And Shocker just stops and just watches. And he has this line where he says, you know, this really lacks the kind of drama and pathos I've come to expect from epic battles of good and evil. And
That is a fantastic
I
line.
know. Because, this is like a big name villain, and she's trying to, show her stuff, and she's kind of like, embarrassing herself here and there. And essentially, one of his big plan is to kind of build this machine, and he's not 100% sure what it does. But he knows it's gonna make him. Like, I've haphazardly put this shit together. Super science. I'm gonna do something with it. He has literally no plan. And it's actually the thing that's been kind of causing her powers to go haywire at the same time. And during this arc, it's a funny and adventurous arc where she and Bruno like do get closer and kind of finally finally just go for it and start dating at the end of this arc. We kind of learn more about her powers, and Shocker is just always fun. He's really good in this storyline. So yeah, issue 2, I think, out of this storyline, which was number 33. This really tickled me. This was really fun, entertaining read. But the whole arc was really good. This arc was called The Ratio, and it was a lot of fun. I'm gonna miss G. Willow Watson a lot on this title, but when you're done, it's good to walk away instead of just sticking around and turning out like half-ass stuff. So good for her. I'm glad she's doing that, and I'm really excited about the writer who is going to be replacing her, Saladin Ahmed, who did Miles Morales #1, and he did one of my picks on my. We're going to talk about honorable mentions. He wrote another really good one that I like this year. So I'm really excited about the next year in Miss Marvel. So excellent work.
Cool. Well, I already talked about my number 3, which is Stealth #1. So that's is good.
Anything else you want to add to that?
No, really. You pretty much said a lot of what I had to say about it too, and I just wanted to make sure again that I mentioned the dedication in the back probably hit me the hardest out of anything in the whole book. I thought that was it was super to the point, and it was super classy.
I just love one more thing about it. Like I mean I may have mentioned this before, but I just really love how obviously from the heart and how honest that felt. It didn't try to do it through metaphor, which is, usually a good, smart way to do it. But no, this one was like, no, this is a little too important. Let's talk about it. And it's done really well and really, I think it's really mature the way it handles the subject matter. So yeah, it's just fantastic issue. I would have put that on my list even if I had no ties to Short Fuse whatsoever.
Very important book, something that we kind of need right now. And like I said earlier, I don't think that you'd necessarily get it from Marvel or DC. Really ballsy book.
Well, the ironic thing is you do, but they do kind of try and do their best to kind of like tell the story through metaphor and maybe not directly talk about it. And then, they both get their balls busted about it anyway. It's like, might as well just go and do it.
Yeah.
All right. So, that was your number 3. All right, my number 3. And I guess we're going into kind of a twofer. This is also by G. Willow Wilson. And it is Wonder Woman 58. Drawn by Carrie Nord. And this was her first issue in the series. And boy, when this was announced that she was joining writing Wonder Woman, I couldn't have been more excited. Because, James Robinson's a great guy, but the title was kind of floundering with him on board, and I've just been like eating up like Wilson stuff over the last couple of years. And she was actually one of those writers I was hoping would eventually write Wonder Woman at one point. And actually,
Mm-hmm.
this year I got like, oh man, what Kelly? I got Kelly Sue DeConnick writing Wonder Woman later in this year, and G. Willow Wilson.
Mm-hmm. With Black
Yeah,
Label.
so it's like, man, I got two writers this year that I kind of wanted to see do the book, and of course, yeah, we have this is the whole thing going on with Hades, and see, obviously that's the cliffhanger.
Ares,
Excuse me,
not
Hades. Excuse
Hades.
me, with with Ares. Excuse me. Um, as much as I see Ares in everything, you think I'd remember. But he escapes. We got this situation where Steve is turned missing during a mission, and she goes right into the heart of a big war, battle, political situation, and you know she finds Etta, who's kind of on one side, the American side, and that I love that exchange she has with her, and what's that line Wonder Woman has? The which where Etta tells her like they can't do this, they can't do that, and Wonder Woman says only the most powerful army in the history of the world constantly claims its hands are tied. Uh,
Yeah.
it's like that's my Wonder Woman, and yeah, very quickly I found Wilson really kind of for me like getting this character quite a bit, and uh, this is one of those things I like done with Wonder Woman is mixing like mythology, old gods, and modern day current politics. And
Mm-hmm.
this is just like so well sewn together. And of course, I mentioned we got the cliffhanger with Ares. I was trying to decide if I was like going to do this one or the next issue because I really love that confrontation she has with Ares. But
Mm-hmm.
I definitely with the first issue, the first part of this issue 58 was definitely the one that really got me excited. So it was to be for me, I found this to be definitely worth the wait and did not disappoint.
Yeah, no, it is a fantastic start to a run. I hope she stays on it for at least 20, 25 issues. I would kill for her to have like a 5 year run on Wonder Woman, to be honest with you, with the way she's
I
writing
would
her.
love it. I
Uh,
would love a definitive run. Like, like people
mhm.
go years from now, like, oh man, that book's good, but it's probably maybe as good as, oh, I don't know, the Wilson run. People constantly like,
Yeah.
oh, Wilson on the Wonder Woman. That would be nice.
Yeah, no, that'd be
Yeah.
fantastic. No, one of the things that makes it so good, that makes her so good at it, is constantly with Wonder Woman, we get people on the book who don't understand Wonder Woman's politics or don't want to deal with Wonder Woman's politics, don't understand Wonder Woman's sexuality, or don't want to deal with Wonder Woman's open
Correct.
sexuality. And I'll say Wilson hasn't done much with the sexuality part yet, but she's diving headfirst into the politics on just the first arc. Like that's the thing. The first arc, she starts off with Wonder Woman's place in geopolitical
Mm-hmm.
politics. That's a great starting point. If the next arc she goes into Wonder Woman and feminism, if the next arc she goes into Wonder Woman and sexuality, I'm just there for it,
Yeah.
man. It's got so much working for it just right off the bat. She's not afraid to tackle the issues that the character was created to tackle. Um, for decades, Wonder Woman has like tried to been forced into this box of being, the girl version of Superman that's all like, pretty straight, clean cut, kind of thing. It's like, no, she comes from a weird island of bondage lesbians.
And yeah, it was God, what did I can't remember what Marston. Oh, actually, there was a term for it. It was some sort of. It was like it's similar to Afrofuturism, but it was the
Mhm.
women's equivalent to that. Damn, I can't remember the exact phrase for that, but
I think he was. Yeah, I know what you're talking about. He believed that women would be eventually ruling
yeah,
the world.
and
That you'd believe that patriarchy would be replaced by
Yeah,
matriarchy.
I can't remember the expression for it, but definitely he was a big fan of that type of storytelling, and that was one of the big influences on it.
Hmm. And so it's really great to see someone that's not afraid to tackle the issues from the very
Mm-hmm.
beginning. But like that whole arc is, it's not a one-to-one, but it's got a lot in common with just criticizing U.S. policy towards other countries, and it's, the most direct allegory currently is Libya, so it's just really impressive.
Yeah, it's so good. All right, where are we? Number three or number two?
uh, Number
All right.
two, it's my
Yes,
number
Ian. What
two.
is your number two single issue of the year?
Mr. Miracle number nine.
Woo! There we go.
Yeah. Um, I'm a huge Tom King fan. Tom King has made me just absolutely love everything he's written. I've yet to read a Tom King story and be like, this he didn't really do anything, or this isn't a very good issue, or this is kind of a misstep here or something. Every time I read Tom King, I'm just blown away. It feels like it's a better class of comic book. And working with Miss Gerards on this whole series was absolutely fantastic. Mr. Miracle number nine has just some of the a lot of the tropes of Tom King's writing. One of the best cliffhangers of a story, that just really just makes you go, oh God. And it deals so much with the anxiety that and depression that Mr. Miracle was created to deal with. It deals with just the impossible situation to escape that Mr. Miracle is created for. It's just a great issue. So the issue is about, throughout the entire series, there's been this war with Apocalypse and New Genesis, and Scott's been having to take like a larger role in it than he ever has in the past. And he's at the negotiation table with Calabac, negotiating terms for the end of the war, the ceasefire to be reinstated or whatever. And there's just like there's a moment where, the table they're negotiating on is supported by the slaves of Darkseid. It has no legs. It's just supported by his slaves. They go for a restroom break, and the restroom's just a giant pit in the ground that they piss down, and there are slaves at the bottom of it. So you really begin to understand the kind of world Apocalypse is. Meanwhile, there's this really ridiculous and awesome and just, I'm still not sure what it means, story that is told to Scott Free during the restroom break. And it's, I'll try to do the quickest version of it I can. There are two painters, a master and an apprentice, and the apprentice is getting really cocky and full of himself, and he thinks he can finally take the master down and really, really show that he's surpassed him. So he challenges him, to spend a year making a painting, and then they will reveal it to the public, and people will decide who is the true talent there. And so they work on their paintings for a whole year, not showing them to anyone, and then they gather a big crowd one day, and they're, the paintings and the curtains and everything, and the student reveals his painting, and it's some grapes on a plate, and everyone's like, really? I mean, it's good. They look like grapes, sure, but really a year on grapes. But suddenly, some birds flying above the crowd come down and start pecking at the painting because the grapes look so convincing. The birds think they're actual grapes, and the crowd goes wild. Surely, this is the most thrilling and realistic piece of art that's ever been presented to anyone. And the student is so sure he's won, and he looks over to his master and he says, all right, man. I know I won, but go ahead, remove your curtains. Show us what you've done." And the master looks at him and says, "What curtain?" and it's just a story that happens in the middle of the thing, and there's like all this context and stuff for it. And it's just like, it kind of gives you the sense of how Tom King writes the thing, where this little anecdote, this little story doesn't necessarily mean anything, but you begin to realize what it means in the larger context of the issue. Because the big cliffhanger at the end of the issue is they've negotiated terms and negotiated terms and negotiated terms. And then Calabac comes back. It's the final day. They're finally going to sign the paper. And Calabac says, Darkseid does not agree to these terms. And they're yelling at him. He's like, you said you were negotiating with the full authority of Darkseid. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And Calabac goes, yes, well, he's decided a new term. Darkseid will end the war, will completely withdraw all troops, and will even give up knowledge of the anti-life equation in exchange for his grandson, since Scott and Barda had just had a baby. Yeah.
Wow.
Like that's the terms that Calabac presents to them. And so you realize you've spent all this time negotiating and building for this agreement that's like really hard, and it looks like it's going to be tough but impressive nonetheless. It's going to be a miracle of diplomacy, and then at the end the curtain is lifted and you see what the entire war has kind of been about in the background is Darkseid wanting to just hurt Scott and Barda, and just take their only son. And yeah, and the whole series is absolutely fantastic. The fact that like it's so reverential to Jack Kirby, to the point where Scott and Barda's child is named Jacob. Jack. It's such a touching series, such an absolutely fantastic series. It's really weird to read Funky Flashman in that because he's written like Stan Lee. At one point, he even says Excelsior, and for this to come out the year Stan Lee died is just wow,
Yeah.
you know. It's a really really impactful series that does a lot on character, does a lot on metaphor for depression and anxiety, but it also just it's got commentary on the industry. There's a point at which Scott Free puts his hands in the cement on the Hollywood Walk of Fame, and you see right above him Jack Kirby's hands with the sign with the famous quote, "Comics will break your heart, kid." And it's just right there. So there's a lot wrapped up in those 12 issues. It's very intense. It is. I've said it since pretty much the beginning of Mr. Miracle. You got college classes that talk about Watchmen and V for Vendetta and whatnot. This is going to be up there with them. This Dark Knight Returns. This is going to be just one of those books people are talking about for decades. You're going to see it around constantly.
Yeah, I think he's building a library of really great modern classics right now.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so it's absolutely phenomenal series. And issue number 9 is, whew, it's a pretty intense one with a really great cliffhanger that kind of gives you all the anxiety of what Mr. Miracle is supposed to do, and that's to do that in a comic, which is just it's pictures on a page. It's pretty damn impressive to give you kind of like that heart racing moment toward the end there.
Oh boy, that's great.
Yeah, so really great series.
All right,
yeah.
Now let's go on to my number 2, and my number 2 issue is right square in the middle of a miniseries that I thought would be okay, but I really came away with a lot of feelings, and it is The Life of Captain Marvel number 3. And I chose this one. This one is written by Margaret Stoll, Carlos. Let's see, Pachios. I can never. That's another theme on this list, as I can't pronounce anybody's names. And Margaret Stoll, who has been working on ever since Kelly Stu DeConnick left Captain Marvel, she's been working on the book, and I have been kind of on and off with her. Like sometimes, because she's done some interesting stuff with Captain Marvel. Like she's made her the leader of Alpha Flight. They have this space station that monitors space threats to Earth. And sometimes it's been really entertaining, and sometimes it's been Star Trek Deep Space Nine Season 1 boring. It's like, damn, like, okay, I was just getting into this, and now it's like dull. Um, and she had a good voice for the character, so it's like, yeah, one of those kind of runs. And
Hmm.
so this was kind of her swan song, because Kelly Thompson's taking over Captain Marvel after this. So this was her last hurrah with the character, and it was like, okay, this is obviously the mini series to set up the regular series, so I'm gonna obviously buy this. And the first two are really interesting. Captain Marvel realized it's been a while since she's seen her family, so she goes back for uh, a visit in I think it's Maine. I think it is. Um, and it's a really nice Maine like town. She goes to see her mom, or their dad's passed away, and her brother. She has a fight with the brother, and he gets mad, gets in a car, and he's drunk, and he gets a car accident, and she decides to stay while he's kind of getting healed up, and she ends up staying for a month. Um, and while she's kind of living at home with her mom taking care of her brother and kind of helping him recoup, she discovers some stuff in her dad's garage, which leads her to this feeling well, she discovers some stuff that's suggesting to her that he cheated on their mom with a woman from another planet. And she finds some space junk and screws around with it for a second. And we kind of go into a couple of issues of her like trying to figure out like, okay, what was he doing? And issue 3, I'm going to spoil things. I apologize.
Oh, you're
But
fine.
issue 3 is where it all kind of comes to a head, because since issue 1, there's been this Terminator like assassin from the Kree Empire coming to like kill their target, and we assume it's Carol, obviously. While she's been trying to figure out what's been going on with her dad, and she's trying to figure out if her mom knew. In this issue, we discover that the alien woman that he was cheating on was actually her mom, and that was the target that the Kree warrior was coming to kill. Her mom was a runaway Kree warrior all this time in hiding, and the reveal is really great on the last issue, because the warrior shows up, Carol like suits up and is ready, and her mom, she turns around, her mom's all in costume, and she goes, no, she's here for me. And yeah, it's just a really nice twist on this. And yeah, this is obviously designed to kind of like retcon her origin a little bit and kind of simplify it a little bit, because essentially, like, Carol was one of those Marvel characters that got caught in an explosion, gave him powers. Uh, this happened to her back in the 60s and 70s and stuff like that. This kind of like gives an answer, kind of gives a little bit more layering. Like, no, that explosion didn't so much give her her powers, but it kind of unlocked them. And I think that's really sewn well into this. And I gotta say, I kind of I stupidly walked into that reveal. So I really do enjoy when twists are done that way. I found this to be mostly like a nicely emotional storyline with some tight action. I was never bored for a second, and obviously this is more important than I was expecting it to be. So I'm really happy. Like I said, I was kind of off and on Margaret Stoll's work on the book, and I'm really glad she ended her run with the character on a high note. And specifically, issue 3 was my favorite of the miniseries. So that's definitely my pick.
Nice, nice. Yeah, Miss Marvel's one of those things where like I hear a lot of great things about, but I just haven't gotten into. And man, every time I hear someone talk about it, I just kind of kick myself, and I want to dive in.
Yeah. She's definitely one of
Yeah.
those characters that's, when she became, Kelly Sue DeConnick. I don't know if it was if Kelly Sue DeConnick pitched the idea or the idea was pitched to her. I still don't know. I haven't really dug into that. But man, when she chose to be Captain Marvel, it was one of those moments where you feel stupid. You think, oh, she's been here the whole time.
Why was no one else doing
Yeah,
this?
like he's not coming back. He's dead. They've been trying to fill that void forever, and yeah, she's just been kind of just sitting there going, "Hey, I'm Warbird or Binary or whoever the fuck I am this year." Um,
I'm in a coma. Rogue or what's her name? Rogue fucking took my powers and can fly whatever she wants now for some
yeah,
goddamn
I know.
reason.
Avengers 10 annual 10 is really good when that happens to her. That's a really good issue. But boy, man, and yeah, I've just been kind of sold ever since that first issue, and yeah, I've been off and on with the character because sometimes, yeah, sometimes it gets dull, but when she's done right, I like the imperfectness of the character. Like when she was Warbird, there was a Iron Man crossover she had where she was drunk, like she was having some bad drinking problems, and I don't know. It'd be kind of I would like to see. I don't know what Thompson's planning, but it would be nice to see some of her self-destructive behavior get back into the fray, because in the Marvel universe, she's kind of stepped up as more of an important role model type of character instead of just another superhero. So it'd be kind of cool to see that done, but I don't know what they're planning. But this one was really nice. It was only I rather enjoyed this one quite a bit.
Oh,
All right,
cool.
now
Cool.
we're both before number one, correct? All
Yes.
right, so I'm going to take a second, not too long, but I had a bunch of titles that I just could not fit into this list, and I wanted to do some honorable mentions. You had a couple too, right?
Yeah, I only have two, so I'll just go through
Yeah.
mine real quick. One of them was The Brave and the Bold, Batman and Wonder Woman #1. This was a series written and drawn by Liam Sharp, who's now getting a lot of recognition for working with Grant Morrison on the Green Lantern. And this was just a 6-issue series that he did that was a cool idea for a team up. It was fun. The first issue kicks things off really, really well, and I thought it was a good series, but I just couldn't, in good conscience, put it over some of these other
Yeah.
titles. And then the other one, I mean, it was it's kind of hard not to put it on there because it's a history-making book. It's Action 1000. A series got to 1000 issues.
Yay!
It's ridiculous. So it was a big deal. I was pretty impressed by that. So I put Action 1000. Wanted to put it on there really badly, but again, as good as some of the stories in it are, it's just some of this other stuff really, really blew me
Yeah. It's an
away.
achievement when a title hits 100 issues now. Like Spider-Man just recently hit 800, and then they started to renumber it. Like, come on! I know
I love that Marvel's doing legacy numbering now because it's gotten so goddamn confusing with all the
it is.
number
They've done
ones.
this. They've done that in the past, and then they stopped doing it.
Just keep it. It's so simple. It's so
Yeah.
easy. Just
I
keep
guess
that
my
shit.
problem.
Or just don't renumber every goddamn
I
week.
know. They look. They're doing huge events and renumbering. That's. There's no talking them out of that. No matter how many people bitch about
I'm here to do two things: huge events and renumber. And I'm all out of huge
it.
events.
When I was a kid, the loser titles would have more number ones. People would joke about Aquaman having number ones and stuff like that. And the real substantial titles, like they were the ones that were like high numbers. Like, oh wow, Spider-Man's at 300 issues. Like Batman's at 400 issues. Wow, these are like, that's something to brag about. Now it's reversed. Like, hey, no, man, my book's really good because there's like 5 number ones in the last 10 years, so it's really successful. I don't understand it, but it is what it is. So I really do enjoy Brave and the Bold. By the way, that I thought about putting that on the list, but I had way too much stuff. I had a few things. Man, I had a lot of stuff I had to cut. First off is Justice League #1 by Scott Snyder. Great issue. I really love, like I mentioned, the Justice League Unlimited vibe to this series, combined with the Hall of Justice from the Super Friends era. I
Oh, I forgot one of mine. I'll go after
Okay,
you.
sure. I almost put it on this list just because The first scene in the issue is all the Justice League characters impersonating Batman. I can't get enough of characters making fun of Batman to his face anymore. That's becoming more of a thing, and I'm loving it. Before I go on, what was your other honorable mention?
Oh, Batman Damned #1. The first Black Label book, the book that famously got us Batman's
Yes.
penis, but it's actually a really good book. Just on its own, it's a really intriguing premise. Lee Bermejo draws one of the most terrifying figures I've ever seen in comics. The way he draws Enchantress and the way Brian Azzarello writes her and using like broken English and just there's this great scene where like Bruce is up late at night because he can hear his parents fighting and he's crying and Enchantress says I could basically shows up in the corner of his fucking room, which is terrifying. It's like I can make it stop. I can make the fighting stop, but it'll cost you. It'll cost you tears. And the context for that is I'm going to kill your parents and the cost is that it's going to hurt you immeasurably. And it's just like it's all in the subtext. It's not like overtly stated that way. It's just the way it's written. So it's like it's a really complex and really interesting take. And I don't know, it's just really fascinating the way that Azrael is able to communicate so much. He does a very intense talent for very precise language in his comics.
His work is so beautiful, and
Mm.
I mean, I would put him up there with Alex Ross as far as his art and how
Oh, Lee Bermejo's art, you mean?
excuse me, Lee Bermejo. God, his work is so gorgeous, and I just can't get enough of it.
Yeah.
All right, so a couple of different things. I had a lot of trouble. I almost put an Avengers issue on here, but they kind of canceled each other out because they're all pretty equally enjoyable. I suppose I would have maybe chosen maybe issue 8, where the first big arc is done and we're kind of settling into this new team, and they're kind of getting to know each other, like the new Ghost Rider and Captain America, Tony Stark, and Captain Marvel kind of making peace, which actually is probably my favorite part of the issue. After all that Civil War II jazz, they have like a nice scene together, and it does end with Black Panther being chosen as the new leader of the team, and that's kind of led things in an interesting direction because the Avengers is now led by the head of state of another country, not America, and it's not even their base isn't even in America anymore, and that has led to an interesting subplot where U.S. government's not too happy with the Avengers now. It's like you were our guys, like why are you suddenly not our guys anymore? So they are kind of bringing their own heroes into the fray. So I'm not sure where Jason Aaron is going with that, but that's really cool stuff. The Unstoppable Wasp #1 is back by Jeremy Whitley, and the art by Grigor Hairu. And the art is gorgeous. I love this title. I love this character. I was really dismayed when it was canceled after 8 issues. This is one of the titles that Marvel did a couple of years ago that got canceled but brought back because after they canceled the regular monthly, they took a look at the trade paperback sales and they were like, oh wow, this is selling really good, we should probably do it again. And they brought it back instantly. I love this book. It's really wonderful. I can't recommend The Unstoppable Wasp enough as a series, not just this issue, just get all these books. The Amazing Spider-Man Annual #1 by Saladin Ahmad, with art by Gary Brown. It's the story of the alien symbiote suit when it was on Spider-Man, but it's told through the perspective of the suit. And it's narrated by the suit. And the art is gorgeous. It looks like late 80s Spider-Man. art, and holy crap, is this a good book? This almost made my top 10, but I had too much Spider-Man on it, so it's like, damn it. Okay, I can't put it on. Almost made the list. And another one, Champions number 24, by Jim Zub, and Jim Zub's taken over from Mark Waid, and I was a little worried that it would lose its kind of edge, but actually, he's doing a fantastic job. This is another Miles-centric story, which is probably why it didn't make the list. I already had Miles Morales number 1, so I didn't want to like put two on it. This is really cool because Miles leaves school to go on a little adventure. I don't want to say adventure. He's trying to help build a community center with the rest of the champions. He's doing champion stuff. While he's away, there's a school shooting at his school.
Oh, yeah, wow.
And he wasn't there. And the issue deals with his guilt over that. And he has just beaten himself up over it. He is like, and it's really cool. It deals with the after effects. It doesn't have anything to do with the actual shooting. It's over by the time he gets there. So he can't do anything about it. It deals with like the loss and some of the people who have died, funeral services. It deals with something that I never had to deal with because I went to high school in the 80s, and I never had to deal with this kind of crap. Drills. That's something that's happening. Actually, Lindsay was in high school during Columbine, and she told me they had to go through kind of stuff like this after Columbine, and now that's assault, lone assault, mass shooter drills is now something that happens every so often. It's like, God, that's something I never had to deal with as a teenager. And
fire drill, tornado drill, shooter drill.
He has this great scene. There's this awesome scene where he's talking to the counselor, and she's giving him pretty decent advice about not beating himself over it. She obviously doesn't know he's Spider-Man, and she has this line where she says, "You shouldn't beat yourself up over it. You couldn't have stopped it, Miles. You're not a superhero." And he's like, "Fuck." And it's Miss Marvel who actually has a great little conversation about him, and like how we're just we literally can't be there all the time, and we have to keep we have to remember this is not like a short battle. This is like a long lifelong battle. And oh boy, I mean, it's just really it's uplifting. It's really much like Stealth. It really does come from the heart. And this was another one that just so close. Like I had trouble. This was actually this one was on the list a couple of times and went off and back on, and ended up falling off. But that's a really great one. All right, so all right, we're I think we're done here. I don't think there's anything else to talk about. Can you think?
Just the number ones.
Shit. Yeah, that's right, number one. Okay, Ian. Take us to town. What is your number one single issue of 2018?
So you know how much I talked about Mr. Miracle and how that's a really, really good series, and I kind of love Tom King?
I've heard about that.
My number one is Heroes in Crisis, specifically number 3. So like, a lot of these I've been like, oh, this is a really good example of how good this series is, or this kind of concludes this series really well. Heroes in Crisis was a series that when it was announced I was really into, but then when I started to read, I'm like, I love about half of it. The other half is just okay. Until we got to number 3. Because number 3 was everything that I loved about the first 2 issues. So Heroes in Crisis is a series about how there's a place that Batman, Superman, and Wonder Woman have set up for superheroes and villains to go to and kind of unload and deal with the trauma they've experienced on the job because Superman fucking died, Batman got his arm or his back broken, Aquaman got his arm cut off. They've been through a lot of shit. um is what I'm trying to
Mm-hmm.
say. And Wonder Woman's died, and so Tom King has at the thing of like, these people have experienced trauma, they need to deal with this. And so why wouldn't they set something like this up? And so Heroes in Crisis is about that place after it's experienced a catastrophic failure and someone there killed other patients seeking treatment. And so issue 3 is basically like the day before. And it, or not necessarily the day, it's the moments leading up to it, wherein it's almost a perfect book in the way it's formatted, because it opens with a 9-panel grid. And each of the first 3 panels is a different person in this little confession booth talking about their trauma and their reaction to things. And the first one is Lagoon Boy. The second one is, oh god, why am I blanking on names right now?
Lagoon Boy and what's
Wally West and who else?
What's he
Fuck.
do? What's he do?
Shit, why can't I? Arsenal? No, it's not Arsenal. Arsenal comes later in the series, or in the issue. It doesn't matter. It's Wally West, someone, and Lagoon Boy. Why the fuck do I remember Lagoon Boy but the other guy?
No one forgets. Forgets Lagoon Boy. Come on.
Right. So yeah, it's the 3 of them, and like they're each in each row of panels in that first page is consistent. They're all formatted the same way. And then as you read the story, every page is about one of them solely on their own. Every page keeps going back and forth between one of them. And just it continues to show you everything that they were doing at Sanctuary to try to deal with their trauma. Oh, Booster Gold. Jesus fucking Christ. Why couldn't I remember Booster Gold? So each page deals with what they've been experiencing, what they've been doing at Sanctuary, and then it ultimately leads up to the moments of the tragedy, and we see Lagoon Boy die, and we see Wally West die, and we see Booster Gold, come across the murder. And it's just so hopelessly tragic, especially because Wally West, since Rebirth, has been dealing with the fact that, like, he had a family, he had a wife and children, and now he barely remembers them because of Universal's shenanigans. And I can't honestly imagine something more traumatic than that. Like the idea of, losing your family, the idea of feeling guilty because you can't remember your family. There's so much wrapped up in the kind of trauma that would inflict on a person. And so Wally keeps going to this kind of like holodeck style thing that exists at Sanctuary, and they say you can do anything here. It's just important to think of why you're doing it here, what you're doing here. And you keep seeing Wally in this holodeck, and he's spending time with his family, his wife, his children, and the computer program of Sanctuary keeps asking him, why here, Wally? Why these people? Why the kids? Why Linda? And then it kind of builds all to the end where Wally is about to be killed, and he comes to the realization over one of his best friend's dead bodies, I was afraid of being alone. And then he dies alone. And it's so fucking tragic, and it kind of makes the whole series. A lot of fans were really upset to see Wally go, especially since they just properly got him back. And I sympathize with that to a degree because I'm not a huge Flash guy, but Wally West is the Flash I really care for. But it is awkward to see him and Barry being Flash together at the same time, and it doesn't really work. And for whatever reason, we're not going to drop Barry. So if we're going to not have Wally there, it should at least be for a good reason. And that kind of send off, that kind of death, it's about the most intense way I could feel you could send the character off, and it's not the big heroic sacrifice that we're so used to. It's so understated and tragic, and it's just you just feel it on the page. You just feel it happen, and it just hurts. Um, and it's very intense, and so just between all the emotion wrapped up in it, between the fact that it's exactly what I wanted the series to be, which is just dealing with trauma, dealing with your woes, and seeing how wrong it can go when don't. It's pretty much just a perfect comic book in my opinion, um, and in a series that even though I still really like it because it's Tom King, I feel hits maybe a little less than some of his other stuff has. But that third issue is wow. Um, it's pretty it's pretty intense.
I knew I could count on you with a solid number one because that's a really polarizing issue. Like everyone's talking
Hmm.
about that issue. I've heard people debate it over and over again, and I'm. It is, I haven't even read it, and it does kind of stir up some emotions for me because, I was a big Wally fan during the '90s.
Hmm.
I read the Flash during the Mark Waid run, and I have a lot of attachment to that character, and I feel he should be the Flash. Like
Hmm.
he's earned it. Barry had his chance, and he should be dead. And but that's not what DC is doing. DC is going with Barry, and okay, that's if you want to steal Wally's personality and make him the Flash for good, then okay. But yeah, there that one does like if you're gonna hit someone, you better hit them hard, even in this age of superhero comics where like no one stays dead forever, and uh,
Hmm.
as long as you could get people to believe that they will be. And I don't know. I mean, right now with DC, I can see them keeping Wally dead for good, or whatever they're planning, which is unfortunate. It is nice to have that kind of effect uh, created by a talented writer. Because I mean,
Hmm.
so many times, both in Marvel and DC, I see characters die, and I barely care because I know they're going
Hmm.
to come back.
Yeah, and it's intense how much emotion comes up on the page. It's just wow, that moment of realization. The thing that makes it so tragic is that's his
Mm.
breakthrough, and then it's all gone.
I don't know
Um,
what DC has against Wally, man. I don't know.
uh,
I don't know what the problem is, man.
well, the funny thing is, like, give it another 5 to 10 years, and a lot of the kids that grew up reading Wally will be in the early stages writing some of the lower level books, and then they'll get on Flash and they'll bring Wally back, get rid of
I don't know.
Barry.
I don't know. I mean, Barry's been
And
around for a while now. I mean, he didn't just come back.
it's about 10
10 years. That's
years.
like a whole generation of comic readers, man.
Yeah, but like the
I feel.
the change happened. The change happened when before a lot of the guys are getting into
Yeah.
industry. So it's just what happens. Like the Ruben gave a great example of this with Angel of the X-Men, where like he has gone back and forth between being Angel and Archangel so much, and it almost perfectly lines up with the age of the person writing him when they would have been reading current comics. And it's like, okay, what was Angel when you were reading current X-Men? Oh, he was Archangel. Well, then when you write him, who's he going to be? Oh yeah, I'm bringing back
Yeah.
Archangel. And it's just it's like a perfect cycle. And I think the same thing's probably going to end up happening
Well,
with
I mean, I
Wally.
hope so, but I'll be honest, I don't know anymore. I used to, when people would ask me, like, who's your least favorite Marvel DC character, my answer used to be Hank Pym.
Mm.
That's changed. I've actually kind of like, I've kind of grown to understand the character a bit more, to the point where I like the character. Uh, that has Barry has replaced Hank Pym as my least favorite Marvel DC character. Every time I look at him, I think you stole that from Wally. You fucked Wally. You cardboard cutout of a person. It's just like, I can't look at him. I can't look at him without being a little
Mm-hmm.
irritated. Even in the TV show,
Yeah.
which like, that's not his fault. He didn't do anything. But the
Mm-hmm.
comic book one, like, no, fuck you. You stole that
Yeah.
from Wally
The
J. Leno of comics.
Yeah, the only other thing I really want to say about Heroes in
Yes.
Crisis is one of the things that has absolutely annoyed me about the series is the marketing behind it, particularly that issue one of one of these characters will die and the other will be accused of murder, and it's like, oh fuck you! That is the worst kind of marketing you can give
Well,
this
it's the
series.
classic kind of
Uh,
marketing, and I see what you're saying because the story is more mature than what the marketing thing is suggesting.
hmm absolutely, and that's been like that's been King's everything. Um, DC doesn't know how to market King because the exact same thing happened with War of Jokes and Riddles. Like it's marketed like it's this huge event. It's not. It's just in the one Batman book, and it's not a big action set piece where it's like, oh, Deathstroke versus Deadshot. This will be an issue all about the fight. And it's like, yeah, it is an issue all about the fight and the collateral damage caused by the
Do
fight.
you think some
um,
of the polarization with this story and some of Tom King's other work is partly due to DC's marketing of his stuff? Like
oh
maybe they
yeah,
don't maybe they
certainly.
should be like pitching it in the terms of like the grandiose way they would a Watchmen or something like that.
I don't know. It's really weird the way they market his stuff. Mr. Miracle, no one really knew what it was going to
Mm-hmm.
be because they didn't want to advertise the big surprise when you open that first spread page
Yep.
spread. Um, they didn't want to spoil that, so Mr. Miracle didn't get a ton of marketing outside the cover and stuff. Which was fine. But yeah, War of Jokes and Riddles, the wedding issue got marketed up as this big event, and it's like, no, that really undercut it because it meant that the story that he wanted to tell kind of disappointed people who came for the wedding. Um, and that's really unfair to him. But okay, DC, I guess. Yeah, just shit like that. I don't know. You can't really do much about
Yeah.
it though.
All right. Let's see. You ready? You ready for
Yep. What's your
my
number
number
one?
one? My favorite single issue of the year is the Amazing Spider-Man #1, also known as 802, by Nick Spencer and Ryan Utley. And some of you have known, like, I'm not a big fan of what's been done with Spider-Man over the last 10 years. With Brand New Day or One More Day or whatever. To me, that really stuck in my heart as something that really damaged this character for years, to the point where I
Mm-hmm.
boycotted the book. And I even did a video where I ripped it up on camera, and that's something I don't do, and I don't recommend doing. Like, if you don't like a book, that's fine. But
Mm-hmm.
that one was like that really kind of got to me, and that kind of came across kind of in the working on that video. It's like, I'm going to tear this in half. I'm really kind of I'm feeling really emotional about it. So yeah, over the last 10 years, like, I've been reading a lot of Batman and stuff, and then of course I lost Batman from New 52. Oh, And in the last couple of years, I've been thinking about Spider-Man, and Nick Spencer, I think, is doing something really great because he's kind of creating this new, fresh start on the book. With Dan Slott, Dan Slott did a whole bunch of crazy stuff and bigger and bigger and bigger as he went on with his run. He even had Peter Parker like own a Tony Stark like company, Parker Industries. Um, which has already kind of like, even though the company doesn't exist anymore, that's already like popped up in like Ironheart issue 1. So there is some kind of like leftovers from that. This issue ends. Okay, Parker Industries is over, but Peter's been able to parlay that into like a career at the Daily Bugle, and he's kind of a celebrity journalist until somebody discovers something in his an important thesis he wrote that really got him, that really kind of did a lot for his career and kind of like changed things for him. They accuse him of plagiarizing the thesis from Otto Octavius. And see, the thing is, he didn't. The Peter Parker that ripped off Otto Octavius' thesis was Otto Octavius when he was in Peter's body. When they were doing that run. So like obviously that was something like Octavius would do. And like that's one of the things like that happened during Dan Slott's run. It's like Octavius really kind of changed things for Peter and like, you know, kind of created Parker Industries. And when Peter got his body back, he kind of like, oh, okay, cool. I'll keep going with this. And, you know, I'll take advantage of, you know, what happened. Which, to be honest, he did kind of already pretty much friggin' died during this. So I guess, you know, had it coming. But with that comes the fact that this super awkward thing that happens. Like, you know, he can't tell the public that I didn't rip off, you know, this Otto Octavius. He ripped himself off while using my body. So he's kind of stuck with this situation where he's fired instantly from the Bugle. People like who have been like good friends to him, and like Robbie from the Bugle is very disappointed in him. Aunt May is like really disappointed in him. And the only one that he goes to is Mary Jane, and her reaction is priceless because she laughs about it. Because she knows what was going on. She still knows he's Spider-Man, and she knows. But it's like, you know, she has this great bit where it's like she's laughing her ass off about it. And she goes, I'm so sorry, but it's just so ridiculous. Hi, I'm Peter Parker. I didn't plagiarize my graduate thesis. It was my evil, mad scientist arch nemesis in a clone body of me. And it's like, yeah, she's right. Like, that's terrible and sucks, but like, come on, that's so ridiculous. You have to laugh.
I mean, that's kind of a shot at Dan Slott too, isn't it?
It is, but I like the fact that he's been able to kind of launch that into to what he's doing. So Peter is kind of like, he's once again down on his luck, and this is the issue where he kind of like, you know, he's really down on his luck, and he's able to do something during this big fight that is like plaguing Marvel. The New York is under attack, and all the Marvel heroes are there trying to fend it off, and they have no idea what's causing it. And Peter is able to figure it out, and it's Mysterio doing something as usual, and he's able to save the day. And at the end, he's also like talking to Mary Jane about it, and he's like, God, you know, everything's so screwed up, and you know, I just need to talk. And that's when he and Mary Jane decide, okay, let's give it another shot. After like, since Brand New Day, like going back and forth on whether or not they're gonna like get back together, they decide, you know, hey, you know, we just gave the devil our marriage. We didn't say we couldn't be together. So they're kind of starting over again. And that to me was like, okay, I'm back. This isn't retconning Brand New Day. So there is that still. That stain is still on Peter. But this to me feels like a step in the right direction. in trying to. I don't know if they'll ever be able to erase that. But sometimes with comic books, time can heal wounds, and this seems like a good, healthy start for that. And just the fact that he and Mary Jane are giving it a try, I think is wonderful. And then, of course, we launch into this mysterious creature who I'm not really familiar with. He is trying to manipulate things. He has this run-in with Mysterio. Mysterio, by the way, is wonderful in this. He has his trial, which he decides to represent himself in costume. It's just, it's so great.
That's pretty
it's
funny.
so great. He's such an asshole. It's great. and,
Oh man.
and then, of course, we lead into Peter kind of having to start over his college courses again. Good lord, he's been in college longer than like most doctors. And of course,
Plenty of people take 6 years to graduate from college. Yeah, they're called doctors.
and of course that brings him to Kurt Connors, who is the Lizard. He's going to kind of like help, get him back started. So, yeah, there's a lot of like feeling failure and rebuilding, and of course that theme which Spider-Verse kind of brings up, like being knocked down and getting back up again. And that's always been a big theme in this character. And boy, Nick Spencer gets it. And this is like, I know Marvel likes to constantly reboot Peter as a teenager, and they really, I think, regret letting him grow up. But I really like mid-20s, semi-adult figuring out Spider-Man. I really love that version of the character, and this really does feel like this is like mid-20s Spider-Man right here. And okay, screwed up a whole bunch of times, but I can make it work. That's essentially what Spider-Man is, like making it work in the worst possible conditions. And the art's really great. I've liked Utley on Invincible, and it's kind of funny to see him draw stuff and not have tons of gore. But he does his best on a couple scenes. But it's like, look, this is Spider-Man. This isn't this is an R-rated image. So yeah, this is a great book. I felt this year was very important because this is the year I fell back in love with Spider-Man and became like a big thing for me after years of not reading Spider-Man, after years of feeling divorced and detached from the character. And I think this issue for me, I could not find. There were some great books, and maybe objectively better than this, but nothing emotionally, personally, for me was any better than this issue.
Fair enough. That's a run. It's one of those things where I hear you describe it and it sounds super interesting, but I just Nick Spencer kind of he hurt me once, and so I don't think I can go back to it. So, but I'm glad for the Spider-Man fans that are really enjoying it though.
I understand that, and I understand those feelings. And I've actually had mixed feelings on Nick Spencer even before the whole Nazi Cap thing. Because I'd read something from him, and was like, oh, this guy's really good and inventive. And then I'd read something else, and oh, boy, that's dumb. And so I was kind of 50-50 on him. But, oh, boy, I mean, every issue so far he's done out of this has just been gangbusters. And I'm very happy. So it's a good... This was a good year to be a Spider-Man fan. So, yeah. That's kind of the year. Anything else you want to kind of leave us with about your reflections on comic books and what you read on 2018? And actually, maybe we should no, wait. Scratch that. What are your hopes for 2019?
I really don't know. I'm going to follow Tom King's career like a hawk. Going to be following a lot more Margaret Bennett stuff. I don't know. I found a lot of writers and artists this year that I've got to follow, got to get hopeful for. Steven Sejic is working on a secret project with DC that I'm pretty sure I know what it is, and I'm really excited to figure that one out. And he's a writer artist that I really, really adore. So, bunch of stuff I'm just looking forward to. I don't really know if I have many predictions.
I don't know if I can make any predictions myself. All I have kind of basically is my hopes for the year. I am excited to continue reading G. Willow Wilson on Wonder Woman. I'm very interested in the Kelly Sue DeConnick Wonder Woman. I think it's supposed to come out in 2019. The Black Label book.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, a lot of the titles I mentioned I started this year. I'm very curious to see how they play into the next. I'm also thinking about buying a little more DC and a little more independent. I kind of stepped back from Image this year, and they've been continually making great stuff, as well as Ninja Turtles. I haven't picked up Ninja Turtles in like 2 years, and I need to get back to that title. So I really would like to get some non-superhero books. Now, there's some DC stuff that's come out and some Marvel stuff that's come out that I haven't been able to buy monthly, and I think I'm going to start doing the trade thing. You know, so many people are doing trades now, and that's becoming like a really important part of the business and the industry.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, you know what? I could definitely see that. Instead of like spending like $4 or $5 a month, you know, maybe, I don't know, like, you know, around 15, 16, 20, you know, get the whole run all at once. I could definitely see that. And so many titles are written with the trades in mind anyway. So I can definitely see the appeal in that. I picked up Black Panther, Tanishi Coates' run on Black Panther. I'm going to kind of, I think I'm going to kind of keep doing that in trade, actually. I picked up the first trade and I really liked it this year. And I think I'm going to get the second one. He is doing this one in space right now. It's like, oh man, that feels like I need to know a little bit about this run. So it's like I'll just go back and you know get the run in trade. So far, I'm really liking it. On a professional level, I'm scheduled to make Red Knight relaunch this year. It was supposed to last year, but things got pushed back because of a couple titles. One of which was Stealth, actually. That got held up, and then they had some other titles they needed to relaunch, so that pushed me back, unfortunately. So it's scheduled to come out sometime this year, and I am all excited. Like, I'm going to do a whole... Like, I've learned a lot from the previous run on Red Knight, and I feel like I'm working with... some strong people as far as getting this book out, and I've learned a few things about marketing through them, and I really can't wait to bring the title back. I got like a crossover script I'm doing that I'm really happy with, and a couple of one-shots related to it. I'm just really entrenched in writing Red Knight right now, so I hope to show some of you that sometime this year, so I hope this can be like a good year for my title. And I think that's it. I thought that this was a pretty strong year, frankly. And I really can't wait to talk more about comics with you, and hopefully we can do this next year. I really enjoyed this.
Yeah, it was a ton of fun, Manos. Thanks for having me on.
All right. Man, we're at 2 hours, 41 minutes. Hope you didn't have anything important to do. All right. Anyway, I think that's it, and I want to thank Ian for joining me with this. You were fantastic as always. I'm glad. I know you mentioned like, oh no, I'm a DC guy, but you know what? I thought that made a stronger video. So you know, I brought a lot of Marvel to the table, and you brought a lot of DC to the table, and I think, you know, whatever you want to say with the whole.
What we're saying is, you're a Marvel, I'm a DC. And this series is like 10 years old.
Yeah.
Sorry.
So yeah, I think we proved that they both are doing a lot of strong work right now, and you know, good for them. I hope this can keep up. All right, hey, Ian has his channel Sydpart2. We're both kind of equal, I think, in subs. But look, if you're not watching his channel, you should. He's doing some great stuff, more constant than I am. And like, he talks a whole bunch of like great topics, and he has a bunch of people on it, including me. Check him out. I'll put it in the link below. Sydpart2, the Geeky Gentleman discussions are always great. And you and I are doing usually fan films, but I occasionally jump on to talk about some other thing. So that's it. Thank you, Ian, for showing up and doing this with me. And I want to thank you
Glad to.
I want to thank you guys for watching. Thanks for watching the whole video. Hope it was fun. For those of you playing along at home, if you want to comment below what comics you like this year, hey, let me know. I'm very curious, actually, what you were reading and what really jumped out at you. You can follow me on my various local networks, local networks. You can hit me on my social medias, Twitter, Facebook, and you can support the channel at Patreon. All right, I think that's it. So, all right, I'm going to push the button.
Yay!